Chapter 442. Two Groups of People? Lu Cheng narrowed his eyes and couldn't help but criticize his master in his mind. Isn't this a little too unreliable? Isn't he afraid that the fighting formula will be taken by others in advance? Why wait until I'm free? Is training more important than the fighting formula? Well, for master, it seems that he might really answer yes. He doesn't care about the 9 words formula at all. As he pondered, Lu Cheng put away his other emotions and looked at Li Wanquan with a half-smile. 2 groups of people came to ask you? A while ago. You're still standing here. That means you didn't lie to them. Do you think I can make money by lying to you? Seriously? Li Wanquan said in a huff. He rubbed his thumb and index finger together and made a counting gesture. I heard that there are consultants who can make money by answering questions, right? Bro, you're outdated. Go on Weibo more often. You can make money by answering questions. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He smiled and said, How much do you want? 10,000. Li Wanquan's eyes flashed as he demanded an exorbitant price. Lu Cheng laughed deliberately. Why don't I ask Auntie Xiao and the others? They just said that they've been seeing some familiar faces coming to you recently. Maybe you know where they've been hanging around recently, right? He was bluffing based on logic. If the 2 groups of people had succeeded, he could go to bed and leave the rest to the military. If they hadn't succeeded yet and ran into problems that required more information, it was very likely that they would come to Li Wanquan again and become the familiar face of a foreigner. It was impossible to tell whether or not the person was lying through their expressions or movements through the phone. Li Wanquan's eyes flickered. He forced a smile and said, What do they know? How about this? Since you're so sincere, I won't ask for much. Just a few hundred will do. Sure. Lu Cheng looked at the counter and pointed at a silver amulet with delicate patterns. 800. Add this. Okay. Li Wanquan took out the amulet swiftly. Here you go. Damn it, do you have to be so proactive? I still feel like I'm being cheated. Lu Cheng took the amulet, took out his wallet, and counted the cash. He didn't plan to pay with his mobile phone because he didn't want to leave any information. Taking the 8 red notes, Li Wanquan beamed and said, Go to 15 Wanha Street and find old Nanny Chiu. When my mother was still alive, my father was with her. During that time, he was often away from home. When he came back, he would give my mother the wine pot he made. Yes, the one you want. Old Granny Chiu, number 15, Wanha Street. Lu Cheng memorized the name and continued, What kind of person is she? Li Wanquan lowered his voice and said, She was very mysterious. She didn't go out for a few days. But she was really handsome when she was young. Li Wanquan said in a low voice, She had a lot of lovers. They all trembled at the mention of her name. My father was the same. Lu Cheng listened without saying anything. When he was out of the door, he found a resident of Zhangyun ancient city who was willing to answer his questions. He indirectly verified Li Wanquan's words. Carrying his luggage, he glanced at his phone and started walking toward Wanha Street according to the map. This was a relatively quiet alley, and the buildings were well preserved in their appearance from more than 100 years ago. Without looking at the wires in the air and the air conditioner hanging on the wall, Lu Cheng really felt like he was back in ancient times, wandering in the martial arts world. As he approached courtyard number 15, Lu Cheng felt goosebumps all over his body. He sensed several gazes from the dark. He didn't stop and kept walking. He passed by old Nanny Chiu's house and looked around leisurely, like a tourist passing by. When the scrutinizing eyes moved away from him, the door of courtyard number 15 opened with a creak. Lu Cheng turned his head and saw the strong man in a black t-shirt walking out of the courtyard. His face was gloomy. He looked into the dark and said in a low voice, She's gone. Before he could finish his words, he suddenly grinned and laughed louder and louder. Ha 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 ha. The uncontrollable laughter echoed in the alley, which formed a strange contrast with the quiet atmosphere. Lu Cheng didn't hide his surprise and perfectly played the role of a bystander. He even picked up his phone to take a video of the man in the black t-shirt who had lost his composure. Several vigorous men and women ran out of the dark and surrounded the man in the black t-shirt, blocking the view of the bystander. Dozens of seconds later, the man in the black t-shirt calmed down and gasped for breath. One of the men and women walked toward Lu Cheng, deliberately shaking his muscles, trying to drive him away. Lu Cheng shook his head slightly and didn't stay. He turned around and left. Old Nanny Chiu is really weird. Now it seems that she has gone missing. How can I find her? Thoughts flashed through Lu Cheng's mind one after another. He vaguely understood why his master wanted to use this incident to train him. A martial artist couldn't spend his life in the ring. The ability to deal with complicated things without relying on martial arts was very important. After that, Lu Cheng didn't go to 15 Wanha Street anymore. Like a serious tourist, he wandered around Zhangyun ancient city. He took a lot of photos, ate a lot of local specialties, and inquired about many things. During this time, he met the two girls in the back row again, but didn't see the man in the black t-shirt again. At around 8 o'clock in the evening, he was lying on the bed with his phone in hand, browsing the local news. Finally, a special reminder sounded. Yen Zhaka sent a stretching emoji and said, "Finally got over the jet lag. I was sleepy before, but today I'm full of energy." Then she covered her mouth and laughed. "Did they take a new picture of you after they asked you to?" Beep beep beep. She replied to Lu Cheng's previous messages one by one, typing fast. "I didn't pay attention. I guess it was." Lu Cheng began to talk about what he had seen today in high spirits. Once Yen Zhaka was free, she would respond with interest. Before she went out, she sent a selfie and asked, proudly, "Cheng, what do you think of my outfit?" She wore a pair of black-rimmed plain glasses, which covered half of her beautiful face. Her hair was tied into an ordinary hairstyle, and she was wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans. "You don't have to be so old-fashioned, right?" Lu Cheng replied with a smile. Yen Zhaka replied with a clenched fist emoji. "Of course. I refuse to be harassed, concentrate on my studies, work hard, graduate early, and find my Cheng." "Pfft, I'm afraid you'll feel depressed." Lu Cheng was touched and happy to persuade her. "No, studying makes me happy." Yen Zhaka replied with an emoji of adjusting her sunglasses. They chatted intermittently until Lu Cheng went to bed. The next morning, he got up half an hour early to say goodnight to Yen Zhaka, put on his dark martial arts suit, and ran to old Nanny Cho's house at number 15 Wanha Street. Based on his observation yesterday, he didn't go to the front door but to the side. He put his palm on the wall and jumped into the nearby yard in the dim night. He landed silently. After jumping over another wall, Lu Cheng sneaked into old Nanny Cho's house, trying to find some clues. After what happened yesterday, there shouldn't be any danger here. With both feet on the ground, Lu Cheng quickly scanned the scene in the yard with the help of the dim light in the dark. He saw that there were a lot of old broken bottles and jars. Some were filled with water, some were planted with flowers, some were planted with vegetables, and some were full of disgusting filth. The ground wasn't smoothed with cement. After a heavy rain in the middle of the night, it was muddy and there were two puddles. Lu Cheng walked around them softly and approached the door. When he was about to open it, he heard a squeak, which was like a clap of thunder in the quiet dark at 5 o'clock in the morning. With a clap of thunder, the door suddenly opened. A ghostly figure, blurred by the darkness of the night, came face to face with Lu Cheng in a narrow path. There was another martial artist who chose to explore this place in the early hours of the next day, just before sunrise, just like Lu Cheng. Not only was Lu Cheng startled, but the vague figure was also stunned. He took a deep breath and quickly made a forced concentration, hoping to strike first and open a path. With the absolute reaction, Lu Cheng's hair stood on end. In his mind, he instantly sketched out the word army that was full of murderous intent. But he didn't say anything in case he was recognized. He just mixed this feeling with his own spirit and released it as a terrifying momentum. The black figure, whose right arm swelled and was about to punch, suddenly shivered and slowed down. Lu Cheng lowered his waist and gathered and released his chi and blood. He used his fist as an iron hammer and smashed at the figure. Bang! With a muffled sound, the black figure hurriedly parried and staggered backward. Lu Cheng swung his right fist back, borrowed the strength, and made a forced concentration. The combination was as smooth as flowing water. Bang! 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 He punched and kicked 3 times in a row, sending his opponent flying backward. Lu Cheng didn't stop. He glanced around and memorized the scene in old Nanny Cho's room. Then, he retreated and quickly flipped over the wall. In less than 10 seconds, he was back on the route of his morning exercise. In the room, the black figure knocked over old Nanny Chio's table. He was desperate and wanted to make a last struggle. But when he rolled away and stood up, he saw that the door was empty. It was dark and quiet. There was no enemy. The previous storm of attacks was like a dream. The black figure was stunned. He took a deep breath and didn't dare to stay any longer. He rushed out of the room and escaped from old Nanny Chio's house before others came. He was vigilant all the way, looking back from time to time. He took several detours before he entered the guest house. "Senior brother, how was it? Did you find anything?" His junior brother and sister, who were waiting for him, surrounded him. The black figure was a strong man in his late 20s. Hearing the question, he said anxiously, "Nothing, but I met a master." "A master?" His junior sister blurted out in surprise. "Yes." The black figure nodded solemnly, as if he had returned to the past. As soon as he opened the door, he saw a figure standing silently outside. His back was shimmering, and his face was completely blurred, as if he had completely blended into the darkness. Before he made a move, he felt like he was trapped in a desperate situation. His body and mind trembled, and he almost couldn't resist. But the opponent's next attack was like a stormy sea, breaking his stance in 3 or 4 moves and making him feel like he was about to die. But under such circumstances, the opponent was gone, as if he had never been there. Thinking of this, the black figure realized that his back was covered in cold sweat, soaking his clothes. "Quick, report to the sect and ask them to send a master," he said hurriedly. His junior brother frowned. "We haven't found old Nanny Chio yet. Isn't it too early to ask the elders for help?" "No, it'll be too late if we wait until we find old Nanny Chio," the black figure said resolutely. Chapter 443. The man in the black t-shirt is one group of people, and the guy I just met is another. Li Wanquan really wasn't lying. Lu Cheng left Wanha Street thoughtfully, putting the matter at the back of his mind for the time being. He went to a secluded place he had found the day before and concentrated on practicing the swordsman formula and the unique skills of the ice sect, improving himself little by little. At 8 in the morning, he packed up his frame and went back the same way he had come. When he passed by a breakfast shop, he stopped and bought 4 big steamed buns, the kind that was oily and full of meat. Snap! He took a photo and sent it to Yen Zhuka with a snickering emoji. "I read the comments online that this shop's steamed buns are pretty good. I just took a few bites, and it lives up to its name. But I didn't dare to buy too many for fear of scaring the owner. I had to go to the stalls one by one." It was almost dinner time. The girl quickly replied with a picture of the dining table. There were many dishes on it, including fried steak and stewed beef brisket with potatoes. It was a combination of Chinese and Western. The presentation was beautiful, but the taste was unknown. "Come on, let's hurt each other," Yen Zhuka said, slamming the table. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. His mood improved and his appetite increased. He ate 7 breakfasts in a row and returned to the inn-style hotel in satisfaction. After more than an hour, Yen Zhuka finished her other business in intermittent chatting. She sent a video call request, which Lu Cheng had been waiting for a long time. After a fleeting buffer, the girl appeared in the picture. She was wearing a nightgown that exposed her delicate collarbone and covered with a quilt with a fresh pattern. Her hair was down and draped lazily behind her back. Without the glasses on her nose, her eyes sparkled. She was so beautiful that Lu Cheng couldn't take his eyes off her. "Say something. Why do you keep looking at me?" Yen Zhuka tilted her head and raised her chin slightly. "Because you're pretty," Lu Cheng said half jokingly, half sincerely. Yen Zhuka's eyes curved into crescents. She spat, "You're exaggerating." They flirted for a while before the girl changed the topic out of concern for Lu Cheng. "Cheng, did you find anything at old Nanny Chio's?" "No, I bumped into a colleague before I entered the house. After a few rounds, I realized that I had alerted the others, so I left. But judging from the situation in the yard, old Nanny Chio is indeed as mysterious, gloomy, and weird as the rumors say." Lu Cheng truthfully described what he had seen and heard in front of his wife. "You even had a fight." Yen Zhuka focused on the main point she was most concerned about. Lu Cheng coughed twice and said, "It's nothing. After all, we live in a society governed by law. Who dares to hurt people casually? It's just a few moves, and there was no killing intent." For others, it's not worth taking such a risk for a secret method. Especially since both sides were dance stage martial artists, they were definitely the backbone of their respective forces. If something were to happen to them, neither side would let the matter rest. A secret method was indeed precious, but it wasn't enough to put one in jail for half a life. If it didn't involve the mystery of the gene Dan in his body, Lu Cheng might not even have been interested in it. Some things were more like embellishments and icing on the cake. Therefore, he noticed that the black shadow was obviously restraining himself when he punched at the beginning. "You're right." Yen Zheka nodded slightly. She rolled her eyes and said thoughtfully, "Cheng, yesterday you said that your master didn't care much about the 9 words formula and wasted a lot of precious time to train you. Let me think about it. Something seems wrong. Your master doesn't care about it. But what about the military? Aren't they also collecting the 9 words formula for research? Are they willing to take the risk of losing the fighting formula until you're free?" Ha! Lu Cheng was stunned, and the doubts in his heart suddenly cleared up. That's right. Seniors like the Queen of Thought and the Divine Enchanter of Sin Flame were very concerned about the 9 words formula. The military had no reason to watch the loss of the fighting formula just because of their master's capricious request to train his disciple. The reason why they didn't do anything and didn't intervene was because everything was under control so far. Those 2 groups of people weren't big forces, so the military was confident they could handle them. But shouldn't the focus be on old Nanny Chiu? Once this key figure disappeared completely, the military would be at a loss, right? They haven't done anything yet because they've been monitoring the situation and keeping track of old Nanny Chiu's whereabouts, so they're confident of my safety. Before the situation goes out of control, they're giving me a chance to train for my master's sake? Phew. In that case, they must be waiting for me to ask for help so that they can settle this matter openly. Thinking about this, Lu Cheng understood the whole story. He was like a child. Under the supervision of his parents, he was playing a game that seemed risky but was actually as stable as a dog. And the parents were proudly waiting for the child to ask for help. As a child, Lu Cheng's competitive spirit was immediately aroused. He wanted to do this beautifully and not rely on the military. He wanted to get the fighting formula before they interfered. I can't be underestimated. I can't let my parents get what they want. Lu Cheng's laziness was gone and he told Yen Zheka his speculations and ideas. Yes. Brother Cheng, you can do it. Don't let the military have a chance. Yen Zheka clenched her fists and replied cheerfully, trying to encourage him in a coquettish tone. Hee, I'm indeed the smartest person in the family. With the military's supervision, she was completely relieved. After Yen Zheka said good night and reluctantly went to warm the bed with the Empress Dowager, Lu Cheng felt an indescribable sense of loss. After a moment of contemplation, he opened his notebook and began to organize his thoughts by writing. My advantage is that I'm wearing glasses, short hair, and a disguise. Even if they've watched the national competition on TV, they won't recognize me unless they're familiar with me in daily life. The other 2 groups of people either don't know about my existence or don't know who I am, so they can take advantage of me. My disadvantage is that I'm hiding in the shadows without the help of the military, so I can't collect as much information as the other 2 groups of people. After that, Lu Cheng began to write down the possible ways to find old Nanny Chiu. First, I can ask for help from the authorities and the police. Second, the ancient city has a dark side and may be more well-informed. The locals have mentioned several times that even Zhou Wei suffered a loss because of old Nanny Chiu. Obviously, she's not an ordinary person. I can start from this clue. Third, I can follow the other 2 groups of people and use their information as my information. If they have a certain amount of power, they'll probably use the government's resources. First, I can combine them here. Fourth, I'll go to old Nanny Chiu's house at 5 a.m. tomorrow morning and look for clues. After he finished writing, Lu Cheng read carefully, combined and diverged, and finally concluded 3 things to do today. First, find out who Zhou Wei is and look for him secretly. Second, the other group of people is more secretive and I don't have any clues yet. The man in the black t-shirt is in the open. While doing the first thing, I'll look for him and the other fighters who showed up yesterday. If there's no other way, I'll follow the 2 girls in the back row. That guy is very interested in romance and may contact them. Third, I'll go to number 15 Wanha Street again. After finishing the plan, Lu Chang took his phone and wallet and left the room for lunch. In order to hide his identity, he insisted on eating less but eating more. Like yesterday, he would share his lunch in different restaurants so that no one would notice his unusual appetite. After calling his sect for help, Ho Yulin took a short nap and did his daily exercise. Under the dazzling sunlight, he walked to the Li family's silver jewelry shop. The elder couldn't leave immediately or fly, so he had to take the high-speed rail or a bus and wouldn't arrive until tomorrow morning. Before that, he couldn't do nothing but wait here. The new master who showed up last night shouldn't be from there. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone to investigate in the middle of the night. He could find old Nanny Cho's house through Li Wanquan. Maybe he could get some information from the silver jewelry shop in case one of them was in the light while the other was in the dark. Ho Yulin couldn't help but shudder at the thought of the master he met in old Nanny Cho's house in the early morning. It was like a nightmare imprinted in his mind. Every time he recalled it, he would break out in a cold sweat. What a formidable master! I should avoid him as much as possible after getting some information. Ho Yulin looked up at the plaque with the words, Li Family's Silver Jewelry Shop, and walked in. The triangular-eyed Li Wanquan glanced at the plaque and greeted him happily. He asked expectantly, "What do you want to ask today?" These foreigners, if they are not good at anything else, they are very generous. Ho Yulin took out his wallet, counted a stack of money, and handed it to him. While complaining that he was so outdated that he couldn't scan the QR code to pay and was uneasy to monitor, Ho Yulin asked calmly, "Who else came to ask about old Nanny Chio these days?" Li Wanquan counted the money happily and said, Yes, a young man came to ask about her. He was about 23 or 24 years old, wearing a white shirt, jeans, and a pair of big black-rimmed glasses. He had a kind smile. A young man about 23 or 24 years old. He showed such formidable strength last night. Which force did he belong to? Ho Yulin pondered and asked a few more questions. Then he turned and left the silver jewelry shop. When he came to the street, he looked around casually, instinctively looking for a young man about 23 or 24 years old, wearing a white shirt, jeans, and black-rimmed glasses. Well, there's one over there. There's one over there, 3, 4. After walking 2 streets, Ho Yulin saw a total of 5 people with similar characteristics. So common. Ho Yulin complained and gave up the search. He began to suspect that the person Li Wanquan mentioned was the master he met last night. He must have hired an ordinary young man to ask about him to avoid being exposed. That's very likely. That's what I felt when I met him last night. Ho Yulin withdrew his gaze from the rice noodle shop. Lu Cheng was sitting there, quietly drinking the fresh and delicious soup. Chapter 444. As for Zhou Wei, the residents of Zhangyun ancient city who were willing to tell Lu Cheng about old Nanny Chio felt it was a taboo. No one dared to say too much. Lu Cheng had been busy for a while but still couldn't find anything. As for the man in the black t-shirt and the martial artists who were monitoring 15 Wanha Street, they seemed to have hidden themselves or were waiting for something. In such a large ancient city, it was not easy to meet them. Lu Cheng had no choice but to target the 2 girls in the back row. He had met them several times yesterday and knew which inn they were staying in. After waiting for a while, he finally saw 2 familiar figures around 4 or 5 in the afternoon. One of them was beautiful with a slender figure, and the other was ordinary with an artistic look. After a short rest, they set off again. Lu Cheng followed them from a distance with his mobile phone. If they looked back, he pretended to be wandering around and taking photos. The 2 girls walked and stopped, laughing, looking at local specialties and listening to local musical instruments. They didn't look like they were looking for dinner. Instead, they seemed to be following fate. After following them for more than half an hour, Lu Cheng was a little impatient. He walked to the front and met them by chance. Then he got closer and eavesdropped on their conversation. "Cece, look, it's him again." The artistic girl pointed at Lu Cheng. The pretty girl frowned her thin eyebrows and said, "It's true. He seems to be following us all the time." "Haha, he must be attracted by your beauty but doesn't dare to talk to you. I saw him several times yesterday." The artistic girl gossiped. "But our Cece won't like such a boring, timid, and unhandsome otaku." Cece bit her lower lip and said with fear, "Shin, don't say that. It's so scary. What if he's a bad guy or a pervert?" It was like running into a stalker. "You're right. Shen also felt a bit uneasy. It's daytime and there are so many people here. I don't think he'll do anything. I think he just admires you and doesn't have the guts to talk to you. He just wants to look at you. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. He didn't expect that his stalking would be discovered so soon, and that he would be regarded as a stalker. Hey, I don't look like a pervert. No, that's not the main point. Are my tracking skills that bad? The answer is very definite. I don't have any tracking skills at all. He had never followed anyone before, so he didn't know what to avoid and what to pay attention to. Lu Cheng almost covered his face and sighed. He hurriedly unlocked his phone and sent a message to his wife while following Cici and Shen. He described what had happened just now and expressed his grievances. Then he clicked open the browser app, entered the search page, and hurriedly typed a few words. Tailing skills? Bah, it's more like a tracking technique. Lu Cheng changed his words in a self-deprecating manner, wondering sadly if the other party would call the police. At this time, Cici pretended to be looking for something and quickly glanced sideways. She was so scared that she hurriedly turned her head and said, "He's still here, still here. What should we do?" Shen was also nervous. Should we call the police? It's useless. He didn't do anything. How about we finish our meal and go back to the hotel? Cici was a little flustered. Shen shook her head solemnly. He'll find out where we live. Cici, let's ask Brother Huang for help. He still owes us a meal. He said he would hang out with us these 2 days, but we didn't see him. Brother Huang. Cici was obviously convinced. Yeah, Brother Huang looks so strong and says he's a fighter. It should be easy for him to scare away a cowardly pervert. Listen to me, the bad guys should be punished by the bad guys. The more Shen thought about it, the more convinced she was. Then she smiled in a low voice. And Brother Huang looks at you in a weird way. How can he let go of such a good opportunity to save a damsel in distress? You've been out of love for almost 3 months. You should give yourself a chance to be free. Well, I'll ask him if he's free. Cici picked up her phone and switched to WeChat. She clicked on Huang Zihua, who she had just added yesterday, and typed a lot of words. After a few minutes she said happily, "He said he'll take care of this and asked us to meet him at Ian Bridge." Good, as expected of a pretty girl. Shen deliberately looked back at Lu Cheng, only to see that he was still following them, pretending to be looking at his phone. Well, I've found Brother Huang in the black t-shirt. Although I've achieved my goal, why don't I feel happy at all? Lu Cheng thought and sighed inwardly. He planned to continue following the 2 girls until they were close to Ian Bridge. He didn't want to miss them if they changed their meeting point midway. Well, I have to learn some tracking skills on the way. After all, my target is a dance stage fighter. Go straight, turn again, go straight again. Cici suddenly handed her phone to Shen and said in a low voice, "Look." Shen took the phone in confusion and looked at it. Brother Huang said, "Don't be surprised that I didn't wait for you at Ian Bridge. I'll hide nearby so that the stalker won't run away. I have to teach him a lesson." Brother Huang is really... Shen didn't say much but gave Cici a thumbs up in surprise and joy. She was looking forward to what was going to happen next. Yes, Cici had the same feeling. That kind of pervert should be taught a lesson. Although he admires me. After walking for another 10 minutes or so, seeing that they were approaching the street where Ian Bridge was located, the 2 girls couldn't help but slow down their pace. They waited for Brother Huang to suddenly appear, grab the stalker behind them, drag him into the alley, and teach him a good lesson. If they didn't do this on the street, it would be easy to attract onlookers, and it would be easy for the stalker to bite them back. Lu Cheng decided to go ahead and stop following them. However, as soon as he moved, he felt that he was being stared at. Unexpectedly, the man in the black t-shirt appeared in front of him and ran towards him. Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. Instead of dodging, he allowed the other party to approach him. The other party stretched out his arm in an exaggerated manner and grabbed Lu Cheng's shoulder tightly. Lu Cheng smiled ominously. "Let's go there and have a chat." Lu Cheng sighed. His stalking plan was ruined. He pretended to be trembling and didn't dare to resist. He was dragged to a quiet alley nearby. Yes. Cici and Shen blurted out in unison. Brother Huang is really awesome. That stalker is like a child compared to him. They turned around and walked into the alley. They wanted to see what was going on but didn't dare to. In the alley, Brother Huang, the man in the black t-shirt, let go of Lu Cheng and cracked his knuckles. He put on a ferocious smile and said, "Brat, you're really something. How dare you follow a girl? If I don't teach you a lesson, you won't know that I have 3 eyes." At this moment, he saw the man wearing black-rimmed glasses raise his hands and form a hand seal. He suddenly opened his mouth and said, "Army." This. Huang Zihua's mind buzzed, and he felt as if his entire body was covered by layers upon layers of the ferocious aura of the battlefield, and he had fallen into a state of being suppressed by ghosts. He clearly knew that something was wrong, yet no matter how he struggled, he couldn't wake up. At this moment, Lu Cheng connected them tightly and calmly visualized the frozen river. He adjusted the waves created by his muscles, fascia, and internal organs, and then quickly switched to the scene of thunderclouds shaking. Bang! He punched out. Severe warning. Huang Zihua, the man in the black t-shirt, had just broken free from the army formula when his vision turned black and he suddenly lost consciousness. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind. I've been in Jianghu for so many years and I've survived all kinds of hardships. Now I'm doomed. Thump! Lu Cheng raised his hand and hit Huang Zihua again. Huang Zihua's mind and body were frozen at the same time, so he passed out completely. In broad daylight and at such a close distance, as long as he resisted, his opponent would be able to figure out who he was. Therefore, he didn't need to hide anything. Glancing at the entrance of the alley, Lu Cheng squatted down and found the man's phone. He tried one by one with the man's fingerprint and finally unlocked it. After checking the man's WeChat chat history, Lu Cheng roughly figured out the current situation. The man's name was Huang Zihua. He was the backbone of a sect called Zhengfa School, which had some connections with Daxing Temple. Old Nanny Chio's disappearance that day was very strange. The surveillance didn't notice anything, and the police found nothing either. They had to use all kinds of resources to inquire about the situation from old Nanny Chio's former lover, but so far, the results were not very good. It seems that I haven't fallen behind. Lu Cheng put the phone back into Huang Zihua's pocket and pinched his philtrum to wake him up. After that, Lu Cheng didn't go back the way he came. Instead, he went out of the alley and merged into the crowd. Outside the alley, Cici and Shen waited for a while and then walked in curiously. After a few steps, they suddenly saw the strong man in the black t-shirt lying against the wall with his eyes closed. He was unconscious. They were stunned. Their pupils contracted and they let out a short scream, unable to believe what they had seen. What happened just now? Why was Brother Huang, who was supposed to teach the stalker a lesson, taught a lesson? Why does this matter feel so strange? Disturbed by the scream, Huang Zihua woke up completely and opened his eyes. Seeing the familiar scene in the alley, he was relieved. He knew that the master he had just encountered didn't want to kill him. The army formula. A unique skill that can freeze the mind. Clues to the fighting formula. Very young. At this moment, one thought after another appeared in Huang Zihua's mind, strung together into a line, and finally fixed on the slightly stiff face from before. It's him? Huang Zihua was startled and stood up abruptly. Ignoring Cici and Shen's confused and scared eyes, he took out his mobile phone and called the sect. Then he said solemnly, "Brother, I'm here. Lu Cheng is here." Chapter 445. The name Lu Cheng meant a lot. Lu Cheng was a peerless genius, one of the few fighters below the inhuman stage. He was almost as powerful as Pang Leyun before his breakthrough. They were no match for him at all. Therefore, they had to ask one of the most powerful elders of their sect to come here and set off immediately. Lu Cheng was not alone. He had the support of the Ice God sect. He might have come here carelessly without informing his sect, but in this situation, he had to ask for help. Even if the Ice God sect had little influence in the provinces and cities around the ancient city, they still had a lot of masters. Any two of them would be beyond his power to contend with. Well, the elders had to come here before tomorrow morning and search for old Nanny Chio within one day. If they couldn't find her and get the clue of the fighting formula, they would leak this information to Daxing Temple and try to get something out of it. All kinds of thoughts flashed through the mind of Huang Zihua, the man in the black t-shirt. His tone and expression were solemn as he tried to get help from the other side of the phone. His words were concise and comprehensive, and he did not say much. Everything was contained in those two simple words. After hanging up the phone, Huang Zihua calmed himself down and glanced at Cici and Shin. He nodded reluctantly and said, "I've got something to do. I'll treat you to dinner later." The mysterious disappearance of old Nanny Chiu had put him under a lot of pressure. He didn't have the time to flirt with girls until he received Cici's message. He wanted to relax and clear his mind to see if he could get some inspiration. Now that a powerful figure was here and the situation had changed drastically, he didn't have the time to chat with girls. Okay. Cici and Shen looked at each other in confusion. They didn't know what was going on at the moment, so they answered in confusion. Then, Cici instinctively added worriedly, "Brother Huang, that stalker won't come again, right?" Huang Zihua gazed at her and said, Don't worry, his target is not you." Then he walked out of the alley and returned to the inn, leaving the two girls standing there in a daze. "Not me. The unconscious brother Huang. The stalker didn't show up." Cici looked at Shen and suddenly had some guesses. "We seem to be involved in something serious. I'm afraid that the stalker is looking for brother Huang. I'm just a cover." After understanding this, Cici was both relieved and scared. She felt curious and inexplicably disappointed. At this moment, Shen frowned and murmured to herself, "Lu Cheng. This name sounds familiar." Now that his identity had been exposed, Lu Cheng knew that Huang Zihua would definitely ask for help. He wasn't willing to ask for help from his parents, unless he was in a desperate situation. Therefore, he packed a lot of food and returned to the inn. While eating, he analyzed and pondered over the information he had received from Huang Zihua. He wanted to speed up his progress and try to be one step ahead of Huang Zihua. Through the authorities, they found the local tyrant, Zhou Wei, but they didn't get any useful information. They had sent people to keep an eye on Li Wanquan, hoping that old Nanny Chiu would walk into the trap. For this eccentric and mysterious woman, it was very likely that she would retaliate after being betrayed by Li Wanquan. Some of them were still keeping an eye on 15 Wanhe Street, fearing that old Nanny Chiu might come home to fetch something. Lu Qing didn't come up with any new discoveries after going through his mind. He just eliminated a lot of possibilities. Before he knew it, it was almost 8:30 in the evening. His cell phone rang with a special reminder. Yan Zhaka sent a laughing emoji. "Haha, such a funny thing this early in the morning. Hello, pervert Cheng. What can I do? I'm also helpless. I don't know how to follow people." Lu Cheng sent a crying emoji. It wasn't a good experience to be a pervert, except in front of Ku. What do the two girls look like? Yan Zhaka sent a laughing emoji. I can recognize them if I see them, but I can't remember them if I don't see them. Lu Qing thought of something and answered with a little exaggeration. Yan Zhaka sent a biting emoji. You're lying. If they're not pretty, why would Huang Zihua hit on them? After all, he's at the dance stage. Maybe it's because it's hard for me to go from luxury to frugality. Lu Chang saw that his little fairy had fallen into his trap and sent a laughing emoji. Yan Zhaka paused for a moment before replying. I almost laughed out loud and spat out the milk. My mom looked at me strangely. Oh, by the way, have you found any clues? She was in a good mood and brought the topic back to the right track. Does it count as a clue if all the clues are gone? Lu Chang told his wife what he had concluded. Yes. Yan Zhaka sent a contemplative emoji with her hands on her chin. According to mystery novels, we have to go back to the starting point and start again. Since we can't figure out how old Nanny Chiu left the yard, we have to go back to the place where she disappeared and start again. So, I plan to go to old Nanny Chiu's house at 3 in the morning to see if there are any clues left by others. They can't find it, but it doesn't mean I can't. Not many people below the level of physical invulnerability can master a unique skill like Ice Mirror. Lu Cheng said tacitly. Hee, husband and wife think alike. Yan Zhaka replied with a laughing emoji. The pleasant conversation became intermittent after Yan Zhaka packed up and left the house. However, the intermittent conversation didn't last long because it was time for Lu Cheng to sleep and recover his energy. After saying good night, he sighed and entered meditation. He fell into a deep sleep. At 3 in the morning, the alarm clock rang. Lu Cheng woke up at once and became energetic again. After changing into his dark martial arts suit, he told Yan Zhaka and himself, Let's go. In the dead of night, the lights were lonely. Lu Chang walked in the dark and soon arrived at 15 Wanha Street. Relying on his keen senses and previous experience, he found 2 hidden posts. He waited patiently. When a drunkard passed by and attracted the attention of the hidden posts, he jumped over the wall like a big black bird and directly entered old Nanny Chio's yard. He landed silently and pounced forward like a civet cat. Lu Cheng opened the door gently and entered the room, closing the door behind him. Under the starlight, he saw everything in the room, including many antique utensils, paintings, and decorations. It was said that old Nanny Chio didn't like calligraphy and paintings. Lu Cheng was puzzled and checked them one by one, but still found no valuable clues. He looked carefully from the living room to the bedroom, from the bedroom to the kitchen, but found nothing. Lu Cheng had no choice but to stop thinking and visualize the ice mirror. He calmed himself down and reflected every detail within dozens of centimeters around him. Everything appeared. He walked back step by step according to the route he had taken just now. He felt that the surroundings were quiet and peaceful, without any unusual changes. From the kitchen to the bedroom, from the bedroom to the living room, Lu Cheng suddenly heard a heartbeat, but it wasn't his own heartbeat. Thump. His scalp went numb. He stopped and listened attentively, ready to attack with all his might. After a full minute, a second plop sounded from the bottom of his heart. Thump, thump, thump. The heartbeat was slow and low, as if it came from the depths of the earth, like the call of an evil ghost. Lu Cheng took a deep breath. The ice mirror in his heart was still there, and he got rid of all the creepy thoughts. A few minutes later, he stepped back and looked at the spot where he had just stepped. The floor of the living room was untouched, only compacted with soil. And the weird heartbeat came from under the soil. It's here. Damn, what the hell is this? Lu Cheng swallowed his saliva. His mind raced and he had a few guesses. He suddenly sat down with his legs crossed and visualized the corresponding ancient word for army. His aura immediately spread outward, like a doomsday snowstorm that darkened the sky, lowered the temperature, and pressed down on the ground where the terrifying heartbeat came from. Thump. Lu Cheng sat cross-legged and reached out his right hand. With the help of his aura, he clenched his fist and knocked lightly on the ground. He said in a low voice, "Come out. Come out. I won't do anything to you." As soon as his voice fell, a strange change occurred. The ground seemed to be wriggling, and colorful little insects drilled out one after another. They rushed up along his fist that was touching the ground like a tide. They were so dense that it made people tremble both physically and mentally. Lu Cheng shook his head. The surface of his fist was suddenly ignited with a violent red flame. The colorful bugs were burned black before they could do anything. They fell like rain. When there were only a dozen bugs left, they finally stopped flying like moths to the flame. A small, slightly wrinkled hand poked out of the compacted soil. It was not big and looked like a woman. In the strange scene, another hand, head, torso, and feet all crawled out of the ground, outlining an old woman in dark red clothes. Old Nanny Chio? Lu Cheng secretly exhaled, withdrew his aura, and asked with a smile. The old woman, with a straight face and a slightly trembling body, corrected him. Chiu Huazhen. Sure enough. Lu Cheng looked her up and down and found that she didn't look old except for the white hair on her head. She was dignified and elegant, not at all strange and scary as the rumors said. Well, she used to be a beauty with many pursuers. Lu Cheng nodded. Supernatural power? If old Nanny Chio was strong, she wouldn't have to hide in this way. But she could hide in the soil and not come out for days like hibernation. It's hard for anyone below the level of physical invulnerability to do that. Yes. Chiu Huazhen stared at him coldly. What do you want? Lu Cheng was about to take out the picture of the fighting formula flagon when he suddenly had an idea. He looked at the decorations and said, "These are all antiques, right?" "You know." Chiu Huazhen's face changed dramatically. "Not much," Lu Cheng answered vaguely. "You should tell me yourself. Old Nanny Chio and her gang must be a grave robber gang. No wonder they could find something related to the fighting formula. Maybe they have killed people before. That's why they didn't want to discuss with those 2 groups and kept trying to escape." Chapter 446. Old Nanny Chio's explanation was similar to Lu Cheng's conjecture. She had been able to hibernate like an animal when she was young and could barely manipulate the soil. Later, she joined a grave robbing gang and learned some basic voodoo. She often didn't go out of the house for a few days because she had quietly left the ancient city. In the eyes of the neighbors, she became more and more mysterious and strange. Those who had lived with her for a period of time felt that she was even more strange. Sometimes, they felt a sense of horror and didn't dare to talk too much about her. The items related to the fighting formula were obtained during this process. Since most of them were damaged, the gang leader didn't value them much. Since Nanny Chiu liked similar items, he simply gave them to her and asked her to take them home, just like the broken bottles and jars outside her room. Once they had a lot of loot and sold it for a lot of money. Internal strife broke out in the gang. Someone tried to kill the leader with a sneak attack. Qiu Huazhen took advantage of her supernatural ability and voodoo to take most of the money and items. She fled back to her hometown, where the other members didn't know. Since then, she rarely went out and lived a peaceful life. She would only sell 1 or 2 items when she needed money. Old Nanny Chiu had been living like this for years, until 2 groups of people suddenly came knocking on her door. She was ill-informed and didn't know anything about the 9 words formula. She didn't believe that the item related to the fighting character in her possession had any value. She suspected that the descendants of the gang members had found her and were waiting for helpers to gather. She couldn't help but feel terrified, but she didn't dare to call the police and walk right into the trap. She used witchcraft to temporarily intimidate the 2 groups of people. Under their surveillance, during the noisiest time of the day, she took a few of the most valuable items and sank into the ground. She planned to hibernate for half a month. This was also the limit of her supernatural ability. She would only escape when the people at the door no longer paid attention to this place. She was smart enough to get a fake identity in another city and own 2 houses. She only stayed in Zhangyun because she didn't want to leave the hometown she was familiar with. I've said all I want to say. What do you want? Old Nanny Chiu looked at Lu Cheng with cold and fearful eyes. She wasn't very strong, but her witchcraft was mysterious and mysterious. That was why she didn't dare to fight the 2 groups of people head-on. She had to think of a way to escape. Facing the powerful and terrifying martial artists in front of her, it was hard for her to have any thoughts of resistance. Lu Cheng sighed to himself and smiled. Where's the jade pendant with the word "do" on it? Just for this? Old Nanny Chiu asked in surprise, her face full of confusion. Back then, that thing was just a piece of junk in the eyes of the leader. If it wasn't for its beauty, he wouldn't have wanted it. I'm just looking around. Lu Cheng replied calmly. Old Nanny Chiu glanced at him suspiciously and took out a jade pendant from her pocket. The pendant had a unique pattern and a delicate design. In the center of the pendant, there was a word, fighting, engraved on it, as if it was a work of God. The word fighting meant that it would never admit defeat. Lu Cheng lifted his eyelids slightly and sized up the jade pendant. Due to the passage of time, the yin qi had corroded it and damaged it severely. Even the charm of the fighting character was only left with a faint trace. To others, it was impossible to use it to practice any secret method. But to him, all he needed was a primer to induce the Jin Dan to resonate. That was enough. Keeping his expression unchanged, he squinted his eyes and signaled old Nanny Chiu to put the jade pendant close to him. He tried to comprehend the essence and charm of the fighting character. After 7 or 8 minutes, he managed to visualize a vague fighting character with a very faint charm. He formed a seal with both hands, one in front of the other, and pointed to his dantian. He then opened his mouth and said in a low voice, "My name is Fighting." Fighting. With an illusory buzzing sound, Lu Cheng felt the Jin Dan in his lower abdomen tremble under the influence of the fighting character in his mind. Ripples appeared one after another. The dazzling stars and scorching grand sun moved quickly and formed a fighting character that was powerful, domineering, terrifying, and full of explosive power. The charm of never lowering one's head to face everything was as real as it could be. Connected in reverse, the visualization diagram in Lu Cheng's mind changed rapidly and presented the correct form, leaving a deep impression on him. Fighting. Under old Nanny Chiu's astonished gaze, Lu Cheng opened his mouth again, his ancient voice echoing. His muscles bulged and his momentum soared into the sky, overflowing with a strong fighting spirit. Old Nanny Chiu couldn't help but move back a little because of the explosive power. The fighting formula increased one's strength for one explosive strike. The The better he practiced it and the better he mastered it, the more terrifying the result would be. It's a bit like Kaioken. Lu Cheng thought in delight as he finally mastered the fighting formula. However, the fighting formula hadn't increased his strength by more than 30%, and he estimated that it would increase by 1 or 2 times at most in the future. Besides, the fighting formula was completed by stimulating the qi and blood and squeezing the body. Once the limit was exceeded, the body would collapse and couldn't recover without a long period of recuperation. It might even leave serious hidden dangers. While using the fighting formula, he also noticed the changes in his Jindan. Not only did it move the stars and ripple the water, but it also seemed to have awakened the swordsman formula, forwarding formula, army formula, and attainment formula. They turned into 5 nodes in the vast universe, and formed a relatively stable structure. His premonition of danger seemed to have become stronger, and his supernatural abilities of ice and fire were connected to it to a certain extent. They were no longer isolated from the inside and outside, but more distinct at the root pulp level, giving him a feeling that he could really influence them. Phew. I'll be able to open the door to the inhuman stage and begin to transform after some time of consolidation? Lu Cheng nodded thoughtfully. After Pang Leyun recovered from his injury, he completed the transformation and received the certificate of 5th pin, officially stepping into the inhuman realm. As for Ren Li, it was said that she had entered the stage of accumulating strength to overtake others. At the end of July, she successfully pushed open the door of the inhuman realm. Well, I'm not that slow either. Lu Cheng picked up the fighting jade pendant with a smile and said to old Nanny Chiu, "How much is it?" He decided to go back and carefully study the changes in his Jindan. "How much is it?" For a moment, old Nanny Chiu thought she had misheard him. At this stage, he could just take it away and she wouldn't dare to resist. After a moment of silence, she said, "It's not a good thing. 600. Actually, if you don't name a price, I'll keep it for you," said Lu Cheng sincerely. "Anyway, I've already mastered the fighting formula. If I didn't want to keep it as a souvenir, I wouldn't even look at this jade pendant. And its actual value is only a few hundred in the eyes of others. Forget it. It's a troublemaker." Old Nanny Chiu raised her eyelids and answered dispiritedly. "Okay." Lu Cheng touched his trouser pocket and suddenly felt a little embarrassed. He was afraid of a fight, so he only brought his cell phone and didn't bring his wallet. He felt his balls ache for more than 10 seconds and asked with a smile, "Can I pay with my cell phone?" "What?" Old Nanny Chiu was confused. Lu Cheng cleared his throat and pretended to be normal. "I don't have money. I'll return the jade pendant to you." Old Nanny Chiu suddenly understood what was going on. After a moment of silence, she said, "Then I'll give it to you. I don't know what will happen to me if I keep it." "Okay. I'll put the money in your room later." Lu Cheng put away the jade pendant and thought for a moment. "I told you I won't do anything to you. As long as you can avoid being found by others, I'll pretend I never came." Old Nanny Chiu nodded slightly and didn't say anything. She gathered the bug's body and lay down again. The hard soil suddenly softened and she and the bug sank into it. Then it solidified again and disappeared without a trace. Lu Cheng turned around and carefully flashed out of the room. Before the hidden post noticed him, he had already jumped over the wall and disappeared into the night. Now that it was quiet, he looked at the jade pendant and called his wife with his cell phone. "I got it." After sending the message, he suddenly felt that it was unreal. The development of this matter was completely out of his expectations. Obtaining the fighting formula had been too easy. But on second thought, he felt relieved. This matter was actually very simple. If Huang Zihua and the others hadn't paid too much attention to it, and if it wasn't a coincidence that scared old Nanny Chiu, they would have gotten it long ago. Yen Zheka, who was in the afternoon, replied quickly with a dumbfounded expression. "Really? So fast?" Qing didn't leave for long. "Yeah." Lu Cheng was proud of himself. He repeated the story with a smile and showed her the jade pendant. "It's really there." Yen Zheka was relieved at first. Then she clenched her fist and said, "Brother Cheng is awesome. Sister Ku is awesome too." Pfft. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. He happily replied with a few words and then said, "I'll teach you later. Why can't I teach my wife the fighting formula I got with my own ability?" Okay. Yen Zheka sat and waited obediently. Go back and get some sleep. Don't wander around outside. Okay, I'll tell my master first. Lu Qing thought for a while and suddenly said, forget it. I'll tell him in a few days. Since the military had everything under control and was watching his game like a parent, he wouldn't say anything. Let's see when they get anxious and take action. You're so naughty, Yan Zhika said after a while. Lu Cheng was in a good mood. He hummed silently and returned to the inn. He didn't go back to sleep. Instead, he spent some time studying the changes in the Jindan. He was sure that under the guidance of his ice and fire supernatural abilities, he could smoothly trigger some of the energy inside the Jindan. As for the guidance, it would take time to figure it out. The rest of his gains were what he sensed at the first moment. 2 hours later, Lu Cheng went out as usual and found a place to train until the sun rose from the east. At 10 in the morning, Hou Yulin and Huang Zihua saw the elders of their sect. Chapter 447. Where is Lu Cheng? Feng Fakue, the elder of the Zhengfa sect, whose forehead bulged like the god of longevity, asked in a deep voice. Huang Zihua was prepared for this question. He went to old Nanny Chio's house last night to look for clues, but I don't think he got anything. He didn't go out except for practicing martial arts this morning. He found out which hotel Lu Cheng was staying in through the police and sent someone to keep an eye on it. He didn't expect to stop Lu Cheng, but just wanted to know what was going on as soon as possible. Okay. Feng Fakue nodded slowly. Send more people to keep an eye on old Nanny Chio. I don't believe that she hasn't shown any abnormality in front of others all these years. What about you? Huang Zihua blurted out in confusion. Feng Fakue turned to look out of the window. I'll go to old Nanny Chio's house again to see if you missed any clues. In the Li family's silver jewelry shop, the greedy and lazy Li Wanquan looked at the old man with thick eyebrows and small eyes and said in a trembling voice, I told you everything. The old man was Wan Shengjiang, Hou Yulin's martial uncle. He was as intimidating as a lion or a tiger. He asked coldly, really? Think about it again. Think about what your father told you about old Nanny Chio. Li Wanquan looked at Hou Yulin helplessly, only to find that Hou Yulin was admiring his silver jewelry and didn't care about it at all. His body and mind trembled as his thoughts raced. He remembered something and blurted it out. My father told me that she's actually very rich. She's a monster, a monster. After listening to Li Wanquan, Wan Shengjiang looked at his martial nephew and said thoughtfully, old Nanny Chio might have some supernatural ability to escape from the surveillance. I'll go and check again. There should be some clues left. Yulin, you split into 2 groups. One group keeps an eye on Lu Cheng and the other group doesn't hide anything. Follow the Zhengfa school. If we don't find anything today, we won't get anything. Yes, martial uncle, Hou Yulin said with a heavy heart. While the 2 groups of people were frantically searching for Yan Zhika, Lu Cheng was sitting in front of the desk in the room, video chatting with Yan Zhika on the computer. The 2 of them didn't mention the fighting formula or the possible upheaval outside. Instead, they chatted about the interesting things the girl had encountered in the past few days as she settled down, went shopping, and registered for classes. They also shared the customs of different countries and regions. Just then, Lu Cheng's phone rang. A call came in. He picked it up and saw that it was his master. Thus, he made a hand gesture to Little Fairy and chose to accept the call. Hello, master, what's the matter? Lu Cheng could vaguely guess the purpose of this call, so he pretended to be at a loss and asked. Geezer sure chuckled and said, you seem to have a lot of free time. Are you not anxious at all? Both sides have sent experienced experts over. Maybe Daxing Temple and the others will be involved. The military can't wait any longer. They plan to take over this matter. They asked you to stay aside and watch. Don't interfere. Sure. Lu Cheng answered in a relaxed tone, which made Yan Zhika burst into laughter on the screen. She pursed her lips and looked at him sideways. Sis, you brat. Something's not right. Cough, cough. Are you hiding something from me, your master? Are you really not anxious? Aren't you afraid that the fighting formula will fall into the hands of others? Are you really willing to be completely outclassed by the military? I'm not anxious. Why should I be anxious? Lu Cheng answered with a smile. I've already mastered the fighting formula. Cough, cough, cough. Geezer sure seemed to have taken a sip of wine and spat out something. After a while he said, "When did you find the fighting formula?" Not only did he find it, but he also mastered it. If it weren't for the dignity of a master, this old man would have asked a bunch of questions. Lu Cheng briefly explained the matter from beginning to end. He didn't even hide the fact that he wanted to see the military make a fool of themselves. However, he didn't mention the abnormality of the Jindan. After all, his master had always acted like he didn't care much about it. You really do have an affinity with the 9 words formula. Geezer sure sighed and chuckled. It's good that you didn't mention it. Those guys are so arrogant. Damn, master. You're a respected senior. How can you have the same bad thoughts as a child like me? Lu Cheng complained. He chuckled and said, "Master, you have to tell me about the military's reaction." He didn't have to wait here for a few days. Zhengyun Ancient City was such a big place that 2 or 3 days was the limit. It was hard to say when the military would realize something was wrong. "Hey, you little brat. You're really asking for a beating. Go back and rest. Then come to Wuxia province. The fighting formula still needs to be given to the military. You have to get the Emperor Yen force as soon as possible. Try to complete the sublimation of the 2 forces before you transform." Geezer sure smiled satisfactorily and instructed. "Yes, master." Lu Cheng answered cheerfully. When he hung up, he saw Yen Zheka covering her mouth and giggling. "Cheng, you two are indeed master and disciple. They really do have a tacit understanding in certain aspects." Lu Cheng deliberately squinted at her. "Ku, are you mocking me for being as unreliable as my master?" Yen Zheka turned her eyes and smiled. Her right hand made a phone call gesture. "Hello, is this Coach Sure? Your disciple said you're unreliable. Hurry up and get rid of this evil creature." Lu Cheng silently added the second half of the sentence for his wife. After the girl went to bed, he stood up and began to pack his luggage. He had no doubt that the military could find old Nanny Chiu. Large local forces might have 2 or 3 inhuman mighty ones and many Dan stage masters, so they couldn't be underestimated. However, their numbers were too small, and their members were biased and monotonous. Unlike the military, they could find people who were good at fighting and good at tracking. That was why they had the confidence to not show up and watch their game with a smile. Under such circumstances, how could old Nanny Chiu, who was only a dabbler in concealment, escape? At 2:30 in the afternoon, 2 strong men, one tall and one short, directly broke into number 15 Wanhe Street, ignoring the surveillance around them. Fang Fakue and Wan Shengjiang, who had returned in vain in the morning, hurried over with Huang Zihua and Hou Yulin. They were on high alert and looked on indifferently. The 2 men kept a straight face and didn't care about the gazes on them. They searched carefully from outside to inside. After repeating the same thing over and over again, they suddenly stopped in their tracks and stopped somewhere in the living room. They looked at each other and nodded slightly. The tall man suddenly squatted down and pounded the ground with his right hand as if he was pounding medicine. Bam! Orange-red flames gathered in his hand and exploded when he pounded the ground, creating a shockwave that penetrated inside. Inhuman! Fang Fakue and Wan Shengjiang's pupils shrank, and their expressions became more solemn. Where did this inhuman mighty one come from? Ice God sect? That's not right. He used fire. Just as the hearts of the 2 groups of people slowly sank, the ground that was hit by the tall man suddenly softened, as if it had turned into a swamp. A slightly pale and wrinkled hand suddenly stretched out, leading to an old woman that everyone was familiar with. Her expression was gloomy as she muttered to herself, "You're right. I still couldn't escape. Old Nanny Chiu? She didn't escape at all. She had been hiding underground all this time." Huang Zihua and Hou Yulin were stunned at first, and then they were filled with regret. She actually had such a supernatural ability and means. If we had thought of this earlier, we wouldn't have been beaten to the ground by these 2 mighty ones. The tall man and the short man looked at each other and showed a relaxed and complacent smile. The tall man turned to old Nanny Chiu and said, "We can leave the rest of your business to the police. But where is the object with the word Do inscribed on it?" Old Nanny Chiu looked at him strangely, and then she laughed. "Someone has taken it away." Who? Who took it?" The tall man and the short man's smiles froze as they asked anxiously. Fang Fakue and the others were stunned and looked at each other. Someone came earlier? Who? Old Nanny Chio thought for a while and said, "A young man of medium height, wearing black clothes. He looks quite energetic. He came here last night." A name suddenly popped up in everyone's mind. Lu Cheng. After getting rid of the surveillance, Lu Cheng got on the bus leaving Zhangyun ancient city. It didn't take long for him to receive a call from his master and know what had happened there. Although it wasn't detailed enough, it was easy to imagine that he was amused for 5 minutes and typed a long message to Yen Zhuka. At this moment, he suddenly thought of something. He clicked on the military's rapid march, who was in charge of contacting him. Scratching head and smiling expression. "Can you do me a favor? I still owe old Nanny Chio 600 yuan for the jade pendant. Can you help me? I'll transfer the money to you via QQ." He was quite nervous when he sent the message, expecting a reply of F*CK your mother. But Rapid March was quite restrained. After a few seconds of silence, he replied with one word, "Okay." Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief and looked up. He happened to see the young couple he met on the way to the bus. They were also going back today. Lu Cheng looked around and found that there were no more seats connected to each other. He stood up leisurely, pushed his black-rimmed glasses, and waved at them with a smile. "Come on, sit here. I'll let you." Seeing his bright and friendly smile, the young couple looked at each other in surprise and felt that there were more good people in this world. After staying at home for a few days, Lu Cheng, whose longing had almost turned into impulsiveness, set off on his journey again. He flew to Wuxia province to see his master. "Give me the item of the fighting formula later and familiarize yourself with the illustration of the ice spirit force," said Geezer Shur casually. "Oh, by the way, do you want to participate in a competition? The champion's prize is more than 5 million yuan. "What competition?" Lu Cheng, who was eager to make money, asked. He couldn't practice the fighting formula with the jade pendant, but he could write one for the military since he had deepened his understanding. As for the effect and how long it would take for the jade pendant to lose its charm, that was another matter altogether. Geezer Shur laughed. "The King of Youth tournament of 4 countries doesn't include our country. It's not broadcasted in our country either. This time, we're invited to participate in the competition with 4 wild cards. Young fighters under the age of 23 who aren't physical invulnerability. If you want to participate and use a different style of fighting to complete your transformation, I can help you get a spot." "When? Which countries?" Lu Cheng's heart skipped a beat. "Dongying, Miluo, Shengxiang, and Nanjing. August 12th to August 27th, Geezer Shur said with a smile. "Other than the champion, the top 8 also have a lot of prize money. I don't know if Pangliyun and Ranli will go. Miluo and Nanjing used to be vassals of China and had deep ties with China." "Okay." Lu Cheng nodded. He looked at Geezer Shur and said seriously, "Master, I want to participate." Chapter 448. "Sure." Geezer Shur thought for a moment and added, "Don't embarrass me." Miluo, Shengxiang, and Nanjing were the places where he had spent most of his time between the war-torn zones and China. He had plenty of acquaintances and friends. "Master, do you have so little confidence in me?" Lu Cheng lampooned. He knew Shi Jiangwo's pride was at work again. After a dozen seconds of silence, Lu Cheng asked curiously, "Master, what kind of young experts are there in these 4 countries?" "How would I know? Why would an old man like me care about these juniors?" Geezer Shur replied with a look of disdain. "Anyway, there are definitely Inhumans but not many of them." "All right, hurry up and give me the fighting formula." "Okay." Lu Cheng had already observed the layout of his senior sister's house. As soon as he finished speaking, he bounced into the study. He unfolded the rice paper, pressed it with a paperweight, picked up the brush, and dipped it in ink. He took a deep breath, calmed his heart, and focused his mind. In his mind, he sketched out every stroke of the fighting character. Explosiveness, strength, dominance, vigor, and an unyielding spirit leaped out. His wrist hovered and the brush pressed down. The ink burned brightly as if it was about to burst out of the white paper and soar into the sky. When he was done, Lu Cheng nodded in satisfaction as he looked at the spirited ink. This is much better than my usual signature. However, Meng Qi's energy, qi, spirit and will had not yet reached the level of connecting with heaven and earth. The charm of the depiction could not be stabilized as time passed. At most 3 months, at least 1 month, this Dou character could no longer be used for visualization and practice. It could only be like the Qian character he wrote for Wang Su, suppressing certain emotions with the remaining feelings until it completely returned to normal after a few years. Anyway, I'll just write it for them when it's no longer effective. Besides, with the Queen of Thought and the Divine Enchanter of Sin Flames level, they should be able to master it within a month. Lu Cheng's thoughts wandered. He picked up the rice paper on the table, walked into the living room, and handed it to Giza Shi with a smile. Master, this is the fighting formula. That's it? Giza Shi asked in astonishment. Where's the fighting formula I got from old Nanny Chiao? From his expression, Lu Cheng interpreted the meaning of, "Your King kidding me." He felt embarrassed and smiled. Master, old Nanny Chiao's item is half broken. I restored the charm by myself, just like how I comprehended the attainment formula from the notes of Shushan's study. As he spoke, he scrolled through his phone and found the photo he had taken for Yan Zhaka. He had left the jade pendant at home and planned to bring it to Songqing in September. When he went to America, he would give it to his little fairy as a souvenir. Giza Shi glanced at it, coughed twice, and resumed his "I've seen everything" attitude. Like I said, you and the 9 words formula are connected by fate. You can say that the Longhu Immortal passed it on to you. As he spoke, he put away Lu Cheng's fighting formula and changed the topic. Since you're here, you can go through the formalities and get a visa to America. Once the quota is approved, we'll deal with the King of Youth League. For the next few days, you should train hard here and suppress the transformation. Try to grasp the basics of the visualization of Ice Spirit Force as soon as possible. Speaking of this, he took out a rolled-up atlas from his pocket and said jokingly, "This is my legacy. This is a memento of your master when I was at my peak. Don't lose it, you brat." Originally, I was going to lend you Grandmasters for you to visualize, but after thinking about it for a while, martial arts have evolved for so many years. His comprehension, is a little unsuitable. It's better to use mine. Master, you're already able to make a visualization atlas that can be handed down from generation to generation. Lu Cheng exclaimed in both astonishment and admiration. Isn't that obvious? Back then, I was only 1 step away from entering the forbidden area. Giza Shi's eyes were filled with pride. Lu Cheng didn't hide his admiration and reached out to take the atlas. As soon as he held it, he felt that the paper that carried the visualization of Ice Spirit Force was so light that it seemed weightless. It was like the emptiness of nothingness that couldn't even retain a trace of heat. All that was left was absolute and eternal coldness, darkness, and loneliness. At this moment, Lu Cheng's thoughts seemed to have drifted into the boundless coldness without a trace of light. After some time, he came back to his senses and saw his master's smiling face. Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Lu Cheng nodded slightly and unfolded the atlas in his hand. He saw that it was filled with flowing sparkling light. The light against the darkness was dreamy, beautiful, and pure, but it gave off a feeling of loneliness, darkness, and extreme coldness. Giza Shi smiled and said, Ice Spirit Force will be formed when the Ice Spirit Force is connected to the Ice Spirit Holy Light diagram. When the transformation is completed, the force will be close to instinct. Only the Ice Spirit Holy Light diagram is needed, which can be used together with the eruption of Dan Force. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and felt the joy of finally coming into contact with top-level martial arts. This wasn't something that could be mastered easily. It couldn't be mastered in 10 to 20 minutes like the 9 words formula. It required a certain amount of time to succeed. For this, he had to suppress the transformation of his root pulp. If he had known, he would have practiced Ice Spirit Force and Emperor Yen Force in advance. However, Master probably didn't expect him to complete the crucial breakthrough so quickly and reach the inhuman stage. Sigh. Was it because of my exaggeration that Master was unreliable? Lu Cheng repented for 2 minutes. In the next few days, he only went out to handle the procedures. Most of his free time was spent studying and comprehending the Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Based on his understanding of the cold and his 2 years of experience in the ice sect, He gradually gained some insights. After settling the procedures for leaving the country, Lu Qing finally got his hands on the Emperor Yen Atlas before the four-nation tournament. Its charm faded quickly, the kind that wouldn't take more than 10 days. It seemed to be a little revenge from the military. This atlas was the exact opposite of the Ice Spirit Holy Light Atlas. Although it was only a piece of paper, it felt heavy when held in one's hand. It was as though countless dust particles had accumulated on it. When it finally exceeded the critical point, it collapsed and ignited everything, spewing out unimaginably hot flames. On the atlas was a drawing of a god wearing a tall crown and ancient robes. The core was a very dense mass that spread out layers of flames of different colors. They formed a ceremonial robe, majestic and terrifying. Combined with the prairie fire atlas from before, he could master Emperor Yen force. All right, brat. Hurry up and practice. Once you've mastered both ice and fire, you can undergo the transformation, Geezer Shi instructed. Geezer Shi reminded him, go to Huahai tomorrow and meet up with the others at Haidong Airport. This is the contact number. Although it's an individual competition, we still have to go together as a team. Hey, if you don't go, you won't understand. The host this time was Shangxiang's capital, Fulua. Master, who else is participating? Lu Cheng inquired curiously. He wondered if there was anyone he knew. Geezer Shi chuckled, then suddenly put on a straight face and said, I didn't ask. Lu Cheng tactfully returned to his room and packed his luggage. Then, he took out his phone and sent a message to Yen Zhaka. I'm going to Huahai. Who would have thought that my first overseas trip would be to Shangxiang instead of America? The message was like a stone sinking into the ocean. It was midnight there. Lu Cheng quietly watched for a few minutes, then felt a surge of longing that was hard to get rid of. After that, he contacted the other party, confirmed the details, and booked the high-speed train ticket. When it was almost night time, Yen Zhaka woke up and said, Cheng, I can't watch your match live again. Good thing we can find online resources in America. Haha, that's good. I can't understand much of my opponent's information. I'm a little unsure. Lu Cheng replied humbly, but his spirits were lifted. The next day, he tried to understand Emperor Yen's force, but without a doubt, he didn't gain much. After breakfast, Lu Cheng carried his luggage and headed to the high-speed train station. He arrived at Haidong Airport before noon. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he met the leader of this competition, Zhong Ningtao, at the departure hall. All right, wait a few more minutes. They said they'll be here soon. Zhong Ningtao had a slicked-back hairstyle. He was of average height and had a kind smile. Okay. Lu Cheng didn't rush to ask who else was there. He took out his phone and reported to his wife. Meet up. Looking forward to teammates. Just as he sent the message, he sensed something and turned to the other side. He saw a young man in a white t-shirt and casual pants walking over with his luggage. He had a clean smile and a leisurely temperament. His eyes seemed to have just returned from a long journey. It was Peng Liyun. Chapter 449. Peng Liyun. He's going as expected. It's really the king of Youth League this time. The thought flashed across Lu Cheng's mind. He raised his right hand and was about to greet him. He wanted to exchange some pleasantries about Peng Liyun's condition, but remembered that he was the one who had caused Peng Liyun's most serious injury. Greeting him was akin to taunting and mocking him. He smiled and squeezed out a word. Hi. His opponent from a few months ago had suddenly become his teammate. Hello. Peng Liyun approached and waved calmly. I thought you might come. Lu Cheng laughed and said, to broaden my horizons and strengthen my foundation. After he finished speaking, he waited for Peng Liyun's response. However, all of a sudden, an inexplicable silence filled the air. Lu Cheng looked over in puzzlement, only to find the refreshed and clean Peng Liyun standing there. His eyes were unfocused, as if he had gone on a mental journey in an instant. He didn't stumble at all and completely ignored Lu Cheng. This is King awkward. Lu Cheng, who lacked experience in interacting with others, couldn't help but laugh dryly. He turned to Zhong Ningtao and pretended to be normal. He's just like that. Don't mind him. Anyway, it's very consistent with the rumors. Zhong Ningtao shrugged his shoulders like an American and replied with a smile, I know. Hence, he wasn't in a hurry to greet him. Lu Cheng was about to change the topic and ask about the other two teammates when Peng Liyun suddenly recovered from the blackout state. He looked at Lu Cheng thoughtfully and said, I'll participate in the nationals again. Lu Cheng nodded and replied with a smile, Me too. As soon as he finished, he saw Peng Liyun sitting next to him. His eyes were wandering again. His phone is just for show. I heard that he wants to play games too. Lu Cheng thought to himself. He saw the door open at the top of the nearest elevator. A young man with long hair and headphones walked out. He was also a martial artist that Lu Cheng knew, and Chaoyang, who had joined the Xinghai Club and was personally taught by the Queen of Thought. And Chaoyang glanced at them and said with a surprised smile, You're not going for a competition, right? You're going to challenge them. The two real heavenly sons of China were going for a competition together. Before Lu Cheng could answer, Zhong Ningtao, who was sitting on the other side of him, said with a smile, That's good, that's good. That's why they dared to give us wild cards. Otherwise, why didn't they invite us in the past few years? The Japanese are so prideful. If they don't have any confidence, they'd rather play by themselves behind closed doors. Why would they take the initiative to find someone to ruin their business? Are there any experts over there? Lu Cheng asked curiously. He had investigated the situation of the martial artists in Japan, Shengxiang, and other countries. However, due to the language barrier, he could only look at a few external websites. His understanding was quite superficial, and he could only have a general impression. Zhong Ningtao said with a smile, Strong is only relative. This competition is open to anyone under the age of 23. It's normal for every country to have one or two inhuman geniuses, but in terms of age and potential, they can't compare to you. We've been keeping an eye on them and collecting information. I've already sorted it out and will send it to you when we arrive at Fulua. Okay. And Chaoyang nodded calmly. After joining the Xinghai Club, under the personal tutelage of the Queen of Thought, he had made rapid progress. He felt confident that he would be able to break through to the inhuman stage in the next year, which was before he was 23 years old. Therefore, he did not have any psychological trauma when encountering such an enemy. Lu Cheng's blood was boiling with excitement. He couldn't wait to experience the martial arts of other countries and spar with their geniuses. Moreover, due to communication issues, it would be difficult to understand each other in this competition like in China. There would be more surprises and surprises. Well, if the information provided by the leader wasn't detailed enough, he could ask Unparalleled Dragon King in the group later to see if he had more information. Sounds interesting. Peng Liyun had come back from his days at some point and said with interest. Hearing his words, Lu Cheng couldn't help but complain to himself. Could this guy be a cyborg? He's in power-saving mode when he's not fighting or learning. Well, it's very possible. They weren't familiar with each other, and they weren't extroverted like Kai Zhongming. After chatting for a few minutes, Peng Liyun went back to daydreaming. And Chaoyang put on his headphones and focused on enjoying the music. Lu Cheng and the leader, Zhong Ningtao, were left looking at each other. Luckily, Lu Cheng was someone who had been influenced by Talker for a long time. He didn't let the atmosphere become awkward. After waiting for a while, the fourth member still didn't appear. Zhong Ningtao stood up and looked around. He didn't find anything. Should I call and ask? All right, who is it? Lu Cheng finally asked the question that he had forgotten. You guys know each other, Renli? Zhong Ningtao took out his phone and wondered if he should urge the genius girl. Renli? This is really the strongest team. Lu Cheng was shocked. He thought that Renli, who had almost completed her transformation, would focus on stabilizing herself and wouldn't join in the fun. Who knew that she would join in? Well, the inhuman stage belonged to the internal division of the dance stage. The martial arts they practiced were not much different from when they were at 6th pin. Renli had already mastered what she needed to master. As for what she hadn't mastered, she wouldn't be able to master in such a short time. Just like himself, he had already mastered all the martial arts below physical invulnerability of the ice sect. Even though there were more than 100 dance stage kung fu styles, there were only 20 to 30 styles that were actually needed to be practiced. The rest were all created by predecessors and improved upon. Furthermore, the improved versions were re-recorded as new styles. That was why there were so many kung fu styles. For example, the 26th style of the ice sect, ice burning, was an improved version of the 112th style, snow burning, and was placed at the top of the list when the kung fu was rewritten. Renly! And Chaoyang took off his headphones. He was surprised and amused. Leader, you should give her a call. Otherwise we won't be able to wait. As one of Renli's old rivals, he knew her better than Lu Cheng and Zhong Ningtao. On the other side, Peng Liyun had also come back to his senses. He nodded in agreement. All right. Zhong Ningtao dialed the number. After a few seconds, he heard Ran Li's voice. Hello. Hello, Ran Li. I'm Zhong Ningtao, your leader. I contacted you 2 days ago. Where are you now? After introducing himself, Zhong Ningtao went straight to the point. After a moment of silence, a calm voice came from the phone. Leader, I think I'm lost. 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 Zhong Ningtao was dumbfounded. He almost forgot to think. After a few seconds, he said hurriedly, hurry up and ask the people next to you to confirm your current location. He knew that Ran Li had a bad sense of direction, but he didn't expect her to be this bad. After a moment, Ran Li answered without any anxiety or anger. They said I'm in T2. They said. Zhong Ningtao's mouth twitched. He hurriedly said, we're in T1. Hurry up and come over. Don't know. And Chaoyang and Peng Liyun tried to stop her. Only Lu Cheng was stunned. Was Ran Li's sense of direction terminal? Ha! Zhong Ningtao turned around blankly and looked at the two who spoke. Leader, you should go and pick her up. Otherwise, she might have left the airport. And Chaoyang smiled helplessly. Having a bad sense of direction wasn't scary. It was knowing that they had a bad sense of direction, but they were confident and took the initiative to lead the way. Unfortunately, Ran Li belonged to the latter. Okay. Zhong Ningtao was speechless. He asked Ran Li to ask for her current location and search for her. After about 20 minutes, Lu Cheng and the others finally saw Ran Li in an orange t-shirt and denim shorts. Hello. The delicate doll-like girl nodded politely. Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and Chaoyang looked at each other and heaved a sigh of relief. They then greeted her back. Lu Cheng took the opportunity and sent a message to Yan Zhaka with a proud expression. My teammates this time are Peng Liyun, Ran Li and Chaoyang. The strongest heavenly team. At this time, it was still midnight in America. Once everyone had gathered, they used their passports to get their tickets and queued up to go through the security check. They waited for half an hour in the VIP lounge before boarding the plane. Since they were in the first class, they were the first to enter. Then, Lu Cheng saw Ran Li dragging her suitcase and staring straight ahead. She didn't look back and didn't even look at the seat number beside her. Heh. He twitched his mouth and reminded her. Ran Li, here. As Lu Cheng spoke, Peng Liyun, and Chaoyang and Zhong Ningtao also stopped her. Ran Li stopped and looked at where they were pointing. She showed an embarrassed expression and ran back with small steps to put her luggage in the seat above. After she sat down, Lu Cheng glanced at the terminally ill young lady. He then looked at Chaoyang, who was wearing headphones and had entered his own world, and Peng Liyun, who was sitting on his left. He didn't know what he was thinking, but he completely ignored the stewardess greetings. His heart suddenly skipped a beat. Damn it, I can't be the only normal person in this heavenly team, right? These three guys don't seem reliable no matter how I look at them. Thinking of this, he picked up his phone and complained to his wife. At this moment, Yan Zhaka suddenly popped up and replied, Hey! Haha, Brother Cheng, you can do it. Pfft, why are you awake? Don't delay your classes tomorrow. Lu Cheng replied happily. Can't I wake up in the middle of the night? Yan Zhaka replied. The two of them immediately started chatting happily. After a few minutes, Peng Liyun, Ran Li and Chaoyang all looked at Lu Cheng, who was smiling and playing with his phone. They all had the same expression that Lu Cheng had when he looked at them just now. After successfully arriving at Fulua, the capital of Shangxiang, Lu Cheng and the others got on the bus and arrived at the hotel. After checking in, Ran Li took the lead and led the way to the restaurant. She was grabbed by the leader, Zhong Ningtao. The consequence of Zhong Ningtao grabbing her shoulder was that she used absolute reaction and threw him to the ground. While Lu Cheng was mourning for him, on the other side of the hotel lobby, Two men who looked like Japanese were observing them and comparing them to the photos on their phones. "They are the strongest ones," said one of the Japanese men in a low voice. Chapter 450. I'm sorry. After throwing Zhong Ningtao to the ground with a suplex, Renly came back to her senses. She clasped her hands together and apologized repeatedly. Luckily, she wasn't the kind of person who would go all out and hold back her strength. Otherwise, with their skills, Zhong Ningtao would have broken a few bones. At this moment, he only felt a little dizzy. Rubbing his sore spots, he got up slowly and forced a smile. "It's nothing. I've been through a lot too." "Oh my, this girl looks so harmless, but she's actually so scary." Lu Cheng leaned over and glanced at the opposite side of the hall from the corner of his eye. He lowered his voice and said, "Leader, there seem to be two Japanese looking at us." In the eyes of other countries, Chinese and Japanese were very similar and hard to differentiate. Single eyelids and short stature weren't important labels. However, to the two countries they were easy to distinguish. It was as though there was a distinct feeling between them. "Haha, it's nothing. They like to collect information like this," explained Zhong Ningtao. "They are very serious in their work, but also very rigid. Our situation was reported to the organizing committee in the morning. Shengxiang's people didn't even come to confirm it, but they did." After a few words, he looked at the watch on his wrist and said, "There's no time difference. It's 6:30 now. Go back to your room and rest for a while. We'll gather here at 7 and go out to find food. We don't have anything to do for the next few days, so we can relax and have fun while waiting for the competition to start. All right, what do you want to eat? Any suggestions?" "Anything," Pang Liyun answered casually. His gaze swept across the golden Buddha statues in the hotel and he fell into deep thought. "Anything is fine." And Chao Yang pulled a suitcase with one hand and put the other in his pocket. With his headphones on, he leisurely observed the exotic guests coming and going. "I'm not a picky eater, really." Ranli caught on to the main point. Zhong Ningtao looked at Lu Cheng, sadly, and was delighted to see him take out his phone and open the review app. "Leader, I'll look around and see if there's any good food nearby. We can discuss it later. When traveling, you can't let down good food. Anyway, Ku and I are the kind of bored tourists who value each other more than good food more than local customs, and local customs more than beautiful scenery. Okay, add me on WeChat." Zhong Ningtao was very touched. Most of the time, Lu Cheng's WeChat was just for show. But recently, the non-students he knew seemed to like it more, so he gradually got used to it. He even started to feel that it was quieter and quieter, so he wanted Ku to use it more often. After scanning the QR code, they escorted Ranli into the elevator. They didn't leave until they saw her enter the apartment. Lu Cheng put down his luggage, sat by the bed, and browsed through the delicacies around him. After a few minutes of discussion with the team leader, they decided on a Shengxiang cuisine. After doing all this, he found that Zhong Ningtao had already sent the opponent's information to his mailbox. He downloaded it and browsed it. Kaori Karasawa, 22 years old. Successor of the Shinzai sect in Japan. 6th Dan black belt, equivalent to a 5th pin in China. Developed Qi at the end of last year, equivalent to the inhuman stage. Hailed as a beautiful girl genius that appears once every 3,000 years in Japan. However, they always like to exaggerate. Compared to Pang Liyun at the same age, she's still lacking. There were many sects in Japanese martial arts. Under the auspices of the country, the white belt represented amateurs, while the black belt represented samurai. 9th Dan was the highest, and 1st Dan was the lowest. Among them, 8th Dan and 9th Dan were equivalent to the top 3 ranks in China. At the end of last year, 21.5 years old, almost at the inhuman stage. What a formidable opponent! Lu Cheng thought as he continued scrolling. He saw Kaori Karasawa's photo and the introduction of the Shinzai sect. She was indeed a pretty girl. She wasn't very tall, just a little over 1.6 meters. She had baby fat on her face, round and adorable. Lu Cheng scanned through and looked to the back. Muko Yamashita, almost 24 years old. Founder of the extreme Hado sect in Japan. 5th Dan black belt. Developed Hado in May, equivalent to the inhuman stage. This was a tall man with long arms. He had thick eyebrows, rugged looks, and shocking muscles. Waku, a direct disciple of Shangxiang country's Theravada Buddhism. An ascetic monk with the title of Arhat. At the age of 23, he has already mastered the 16 insight wisdom to the walking insight wisdom, which is equivalent to the inhuman stage. Vagar, son of Miluo's warlord. Possesses the supernatural ability of thunder and lightning. Cultivates Miluo's martial arts and is extremely domineering. 23.5 years old. As Miluo doesn't have a standard evaluation system, his strength can only be said to be on par with Kaori Karasawa. He is one of the two most likely to win this competition. Banam, representative of Nanjing. At such a young age, he is already the sect leader of Jia Hequan. Vicious in his attacks, ruthless to others and even more ruthless to himself. Their martial arts path is similar to our country's. He has just broken through to the inhuman stage, 22 years old. Shengxiang, Miluo and Nanjing are close to war-torn areas. The political situation in the country is often unstable. One has a king, one is a warlord, and one is a military government. Therefore, the status of women in the country is lower, and it isn't easy for them to practice martial arts. Lu Cheng swiped his finger and flipped through the pages quickly. He remembered the looks of the three of them. Waku was sallow and skinny. He was barefooted and wore a red robe. He didn't seem to be any different from most of the ascetic monks. However, his eyes were deep and dark, as though they were hiding a pure land of self. Vagar was wearing a blue general's uniform. He was tall and strong with a cold face. Banam was less than 1.7 meters tall. His skin was tanned and as strong as steel. His wrists and legs were wrapped in white bandages. Other than the five of them, Zhong Ningtao also listed a few martial artists with potential from the four countries. Lu Cheng took a quick glance and took his phone with international data package. He pocketed his wallet and took the elevator back to the first floor. He waited in the lobby for his teammates to meet up. This time, Zhong Ningtao didn't make any mistakes. He knocked on Ren Li's door and let her down personally. He didn't want this young lady to get lost in the sea of people in the hotel again. "Let's eat here." Zhong Ningtao showed Pang Liyun and the rest the name of the restaurant that he and Lu Cheng had decided on. "Okay." And Chao Yang and the rest went with the flow and didn't have any objections. When they were about to leave the hotel, Lu Cheng couldn't help but ask when he saw the tanned, short, and skinny Shangxiang people outside. "Leader, do you speak Shangxiang language?" Zhong Ningtao looked at him, then at Pang Liyun, Ren Li, and in Chao Yang who had the same question. He gave a look that said, "How can you ask such a childish question?" "I don't know. Don't know. Lu Cheng, who originally thought that he and the leader were the most reliable in the team, was dumbfounded. Even the usually calm Ren Li and Pang Liyun were stunned for a moment. "Haha, don't know, don't worry. Everyone here more or less knows English. I'm a professional." Zhong Ningtao wiped his swept-back hair and smiled proudly. "Look, didn't I arrange everything properly when we took a taxi to check in?" "That's true." Lu Cheng heaved a sigh of relief. And Chao Yang pondered for a few seconds, then suddenly opened his mouth and asked directly, "Leader, you've been to Shangxiang before, right?" Zhong Ningtao gave a dry laugh and answered sincerely, "Nope." Then he added, Don't worry. I'm on good terms with the people in the embassy here. That's why they sent me here." Lu Cheng, Pang Liyun, Ren Li, and Chao Yang looked at each other and saw the confusion in each other's eyes. This might be a little unreliable. Why don't we just stay in the hotel and eat instant noodles? Under Zhong Ningtao's persuasion, and because they were skilled and bold, they continued on their journey. Following the navigation on the map, they found a restaurant about 700 meters away that had a rich Shangxiang atmosphere. The architecture here was influenced by Buddhist aesthetics. There were many sculptures, and they liked to paint. It was quite unique. Click, click, click. Lu Cheng took out his phone and took a few pictures. He sent them to Yen Zhaka, hoping that she would feel what he felt when she woke up. Click, click, click. Ren Li was also taking pictures. Half of it was the scenery, and the other half was a selfie. After a while, she was about to leave the restaurant in the opposite direction and fly away. Luckily, Peng Liyun noticed in time and stopped her. Click, click, click. And Xiaoyang held the digital camera and focused on it as if he was sculpting a piece of art. Why aren't you taking pictures? Zhong Ningtao leaned towards Peng Liyun curiously. Then he realized something and said, "That's right. Someone with a carefree personality like you wouldn't like to take pictures. He would rather be in a daze." Peng Liyun tilted his head and looked at him. He said calmly, "The camera is broken." Zhong Ningtao's mouth twitched. He decided to talk to Lu Cheng. He had just taken 2 steps when he saw Lu Cheng turn around and smile at Xiaoyang, who had just finished taking pictures. "Can you share some pictures with me later? I didn't take very good pictures." "You didn't take very good pictures? Then why did you take so many pictures just now?" Zhong Ningtao took a deep breath and walked to the restaurant. With his fluent English, he managed to get a table for 6. Lu Cheng sat down, picked up the menu and opened it. He was surprised to find a Chinese translation. "So considerate." And Xiaoyang said sincerely beside him. There were many people around and the environment was very noisy. "At least a third of the tourists here are from our country. How can we not have a Chinese menu?" Zhong Ningtao said with a smile. He waved his hand to the waiter and started to order. Halfway through the order, the petite girl with brown skin suddenly said a lot of things. Lu Cheng and the others looked at each other. "Can you speak English?" Zhong Ningtao asked in English. The waiter nodded and said a lot more. Lu Cheng felt that with his hearing, he could only understand a few words. "Leader, what does he mean?" Ranli pulled Zhong Ningtao and asked in a low voice out of habit. Zhong Ningtao replied in English with a confused face, "I don't understand. This waiter's English accent is too strong. It's too local. I'm dumbfounded. Let me try." Good student, Peng Liyun started to use English. However, after a while of gesticulating, he still failed to communicate. And Xiaoyang and Ranli were eager to give it a try. They both used exam-oriented English to try to help, but they all failed miserably. As their last hope, Lu Cheng took a deep breath and planned to show the oral English he had practiced for coup. After a while, the waiter was at a loss. Just as they were about to use the translation software, the girl asked timidly, "Do you speak Chinese?" Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and the others all understood this sentence. They were stunned for a while before they blurted out, "You speak Chinese?" "Yes, my father is Chinese. There are a lot of Chinese tourists here. Staff who speak Chinese are very popular." The girl smiled and answered, feeling a little awkward. Lu Cheng, Ranli, Peng Liyun, and Xiaoyang and Zhong Ningtao, who were sweating from ordering food, looked at each other and suddenly burst into laughter. Their bodies were shaking non-stop and they were about to cry. They suddenly felt that the unfamiliarity and isolation between them had disappeared. Chapter 451. After laughing for a while, Zhong Ningtao picked up the menu again and ordered in Chinese according to the speed of their conversation. The petite waitress listened with a blank face. In the end, she smiled embarrassedly and said, Can you slow down? Too fast, too fast. I don't understand." Her Chinese expression was rather shaky. "Okay." Lu Cheng and the rest laughed. Zhong Ningtao slowed down his speech and described the dishes word by word. This time, the conversation was very smooth. Everyone understood what the waitress was trying to say. She thought that the customers had ordered too much and some dishes were not special, so there was no need to waste their appetite. But for Lu Cheng and the rest, this was not a problem. They would only complain about too little, but not too much. Hence, they happily reached an agreement. Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun, Ranli, and Xiaoyang and Zhong Ningtao looked at each other and laughed at the same time when the brown-skinned waitress put away the menu, took notes and turned to leave. It's not easy to order in a foreign country. There were many customers in this restaurant, but the food was served quickly. Plates were placed in front of Lu Cheng and the rest. No need to wait. Let's eat first. If we eat one plate, we won't be able to fit another plate. Zhong Ningtao glanced at the crowded table and picked up his chopsticks. Okay. Lu Cheng, Ranli and Xiaoyang replied in unison. They unlocked their phones and aimed at the delicious food. We need to consecrate our food. Pang Layun's chopsticks hovered for a moment. Just when Zhong Ningtao thought he was going to be the first to taste the food after the photo shoot, he smiled casually. Let's add each other on QQ or WeChat later. Ha! The rest were stunned. Remember to send me some photos. Pang Layun looked straight ahead and replied with a smile. Compared to before, he was obviously more willing to talk and communicate. Let's just steal the photos. I'll post it, share it on WeChat and Weibo. And Chaoyang suggested, seriously. Pang Layun picked up the ice water and drank a mouthful. He cleared his throat and said, actually that's what I used to do. But they were not familiar with each other, so he felt a little embarrassed. Apart from her tendency to daydream, and lazy personality, the big devil is quite easy to get along with. Lu Chang laughed to himself, lowered his head, and sent the photos of the food to Yen Zheka. He imitated her tone and said, I'm helping you to improve your appetite for breakfast. We're husband and wife, so you're welcome. Shengxiang's dishes were mostly lemon sour, with a wide range of sweet, sour, and spicy flavors. Their grilled fish and other delicacies were cooked with spices and leaves that were rarely seen in Lu Chang and the rest. The first bite was strange, but after a few more bites, it seemed to be all right and had a unique style. The four big eaters and Zhong Ningtao, who had a huge appetite, had refreshed the waiter's view of the world after just one meal. In the past, they had met people with appetites comparable to Pang Layun and Ren Li, but they had never seen so many people gathered together at one table. In the end, the chefs, who felt that their culinary skills had been greatly affirmed, came to the front hall and sincerely greeted Lu Chang and the rest. They also invited them to take photos as souvenirs. After paying the bill with his card, Zhong Ningtao remembered something. He opened his black briefcase and took out a few stacks of notes. Here's the Shengxiang shield. 30,000 per person. This is for your daily expenses. You can swipe your UnionPay card at most places, and there's a discount. 1 yuan in China could be exchanged for a little over 7 Shengxiang shields. Lu Chang took the money and looked at the colorful notes. Then he heard Zhong Ningtao say, you can go around here. This is a more prosperous area in Fulua. Ren Li, you have to follow them. No, follow me. You can't go alone. Also, you have morning exercises tomorrow, right? There's a quiet place on the left of the hotel. Ren Li, what time do you usually wake up? About 5:30, Ren Li volunteered. Leader, it's okay. I won't get lost during morning exercises. Zhong Ningtao looked at her deeply and said, I'll wake up at 5:30 as well. Before Ren Li could insist, he continued, there's a Shengxiang martial arts school nearby. Do you want me to book all the time in the morning? Yes. Lu Chang answered without hesitation. Pang Layun, Ren Li and Chaoyang also said in unison, their eyes shining with anticipation. You guys are really... Zhong Ningtao couldn't help but laugh. What a good kid, focused on martial arts. They took a stroll and walked in a circle. Under the bright night sky, they found the hotel they were staying at and returned to their own rooms to do their own things. Lu Chang glanced at his phone. Seeing that Ka hadn't replied, he put it down slowly and turned on his computer. Using the information provided by Zhong Ningtao, he found the corresponding website and started watching the match videos of Kaori Karasawa, Vagar and other opponents. After skimming through, he found that the highlights weren't detailed enough. He unlocked his phone and found Unparalleled Dragon King in the group chat. He opened the chat box and typed, Old Dragon, are you there? Just say what you want, no need to ask if I'm there, replied Unparalleled Dragon King. Lu Chang scratched his head and said, do you have detailed information on Kaori Karasawa, Muko Yamashita, Waku, Vagar and Banam? Damn. You want to watch the King of Youth League? You know about this? Replied Unparalleled Dragon King with a shocked expression. Is it strange to know? Replied Lu Chang with a confused expression. Strange, very strange. Replied Unparalleled Dragon King with a thumbs up. Our country's martial arts is too strong and the competition is fierce. After I returned to China, I found that other than the international arena and professional competitions of a few big countries, everyone rarely pays attention to foreign martial arts and fighting. I didn't expect us to have a common interest. Haha, I just happened to be here. Lu Cheng smiled through tears and admitted that he was just one of the big shots, in an attempt to dispel Unparalleled Dragon King's unnecessary excitement. "Oh, you're in Fulua?" asked Unparalleled Dragon King with a sudden realization. He subconsciously thought that Schrodinger's tiger was traveling with his girlfriend after meeting her parents. On the way, he found out about the King of Youth League and wanted to take a look. "Yes," replied Lu Cheng without hiding anything. "Not bad. If I didn't prefer to stay at home, I would have flown to Fulua," replied Unparalleled Dragon King. Unparalleled Dragon King replied, laughing expression. "All right, I'll send you a copy of the videos of those guys later. It's definitely better than what you can find yourself. If there's any behind-the-scenes footage or any details of the competition, you have to let me know immediately. Some of the matches can't be found." "No problem," replied Lu Cheng with a wave. "By the way, it seems like 4 wild cards were sent to our country this time. Did you see any mention of our 4 fighters on the posters and the pre-match program?" Unparalleled Dragon King asked excitedly. "Hey, you're right to ask me." Lu Cheng replied with a snickering expression. "I know, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, Lu Cheng and In Chaoyang. F***CK. They're not giving Shengxiang and the other countries a chance to survive. Why are they so confident in giving wild cards?" asked Unparalleled Dragon King in surprise. He thought it was good enough to have a heavenly son of the era leading the team. "I'm not sure about that. I also want to know why," replied Lu Cheng with a shrug. Unparalleled Dragon King sent an excited expression. "Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to the King of Youth League more and more. No, I have to tell little Changya and little Fan. Let's talk more during this time." "Sure, talk to you later." Lu Cheng saw Yan Zhika's reply. "Sending delicious food early in the morning. Cheng, the boat of our friendship has capsized, said Yan Zhika. So I fell into the river of love?" Raised eyebrows and smirked expression. "Humph, who are you?" "I don't know you," replied Yan Zhika. After flirting for a few minutes, Lu Cheng started to talk about Peng Liyun and the others, completely unaware of what he was doing. "I didn't expect them to be so easy to get along with." Speaking of this, Yan Zhika sent an emoji of covering her mouth and laughing. "Cheng, you've joined the national team." "Yes, the national team under the age of 24. When some of the international team challenge tournaments were held, countries would form teams to participate. Of course, you could also form your own team. Time flew by as they chatted and laughed. Lu Cheng said goodnight reluctantly and fell into a deep sleep. The next morning, he found the place the leader had told him about and saw Peng Liyun and In Chaoyang. He also saw Ren Li and Zhong Ningtao, who were late. After greeting each other, they each found a place to train. Lu Cheng continued to cultivate Ice Spirit Force and Emperor Yen Force, and made slight progress. After training and breakfast, they went to the Shengxiang boxing gym booked by Zhong Ningtao and started to train. Peng Liyun thought for a while and said, "Why don't we spar later? I can imitate Veigar's fighting style." He had seen the related videos. "I'll try Xinjai Sect and Zahi boxing," said Ren Li. "I'll imitate Waku," said In Chaoyang. Lu Cheng was at a loss at first, then came to a realization. He smiled and said, "Then I can only work hard to be Muko Yamashita." This was the benefit of having strong teammates. Everyone could imitate opponents with different styles according to their own characteristics to increase the corresponding experience. After practicing for a while, Peng Liyun walked to the center of the gym. He swung his fists and legs a few times, creating electric sparks. Then, he looked at Lu Cheng, Ren Li and In Chaoyang. He waved and smiled. "Who's next?" Just as the 4 wild cards were training hard, the round-faced Kaori Karasawa and the thick-browed Muko Yamashita were also watching the competition videos of Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and the others. Not only them, but Veigar, Waku and Banam were also seriously studying the related videos in their spare time. Time flew. A few nights later, the King of Youth tournament officially kicked off. The 24 advanced martial artists, the 8 seeded fighters and the 4 wild cards would draw lots and fight each other. Chapter 452. The Shengxiang Stadium in Fulua was brightly lit and packed with people. It had the unique atmosphere of a crowded and passionate place. The competition will start with a double elimination format. There will be one round every day. Whoever loses 2 rounds will go home until the top 16 are left. Leader Zhong Ningtao explained the situation as he led Lu Cheng, Peng Liyun and the rest to their predetermined seats. It's almost the same as the provincial youth tournament last year. Lu Cheng nodded slightly. He observed the stadium as they walked and tried to be a good husband. Shengxiang was deeply influenced by the Buddhist culture. Golden statues of wisdom kings and arhats were placed around the venue. Some of them looked evil, some of them looked solemn, some of them looked bitter, and some of them had lowered eyebrows. Looking at them, one would inexplicably feel a sense of anxiety and trepidation. Under the suppression of these Buddha statues were 3 wide arenas in the shape of the Chinese character, Tri. There were many swastikas engraved around the arenas, giving off a sense of tranquility, illusion, and detachment. One inside and one outside. The combination of these 2 feelings seemed to be able to affect the emotions of the fighters in the arena. The work of a master. And Chaoyang was listening to music with his headphones on, but he controlled his voice so that it was no different from normal. Peng Liyun returned from his daydream. He glanced over and laughed softly. This is the home field advantage. Those Buddha statues and those swastikas were probably the work of the eminent monks of Southern Buddhism. They were the enhanced version of the forwarding formula that Lu Cheng wrote for Wang Su. They were used to disrupt the minds and spirits of non-Theravada monks, and create the most advantageous environment for themselves. Yeah. Ren Li took 2 steps forward and took a picture of the Buddha statues and the swastikas. She walked back to Zhong Ningtao, who looked like he was facing a formidable enemy. She said innocently, "Leader, I'm not blind. I can't see you guys. It's just a few steps. I won't get lost. It's always better to be safe than sorry." Zhong Ningtao replied earnestly. He felt exhausted from the past few days. Beside him, Lu Cheng was sending the picture he just took to Yan Zheka and discussing the home field advantage with her. Ahem. Zhong Ningtao cleared his throat. We're about to enter the arena. Everyone, keep your spirits up. All right, the contestants who can enter this competition are mostly equivalent to rank 6 martial artists. All of you, be careful. Don't be too careless. These are all geniuses from their countries, or former geniuses. Okay. Lu Cheng nodded solemnly, indicating that he understood. Theoretically speaking, he was only at the level of a top-notch rank 6. He had yet to truly step into the door of the inhuman stage and undergo a transformation. Therefore, when facing these strange contestants who did not know much about kung fu, they could not afford to be careless. Just as Peng Liyun was about to say something, the broadcast sounded. It was repeated in Shengxiang and English. It's our turn. Zhong Ningtao called out in a hurry. He straightened his back and stood in front of the team. Seeing this, and Chaoyang took off his earphones and hung them around his neck. Peng Liyun's gaze became more focused. Ren Li and Lu Cheng silently switched their phones to silent mode and stuffed them into their pockets. After more than 10 seconds, the impassioned melody of the national anthem rose. Lu Cheng and the rest, who were inexplicably excited, walked out of the passageway unhurriedly under Zhong Ningtao's lead. They entered the arena and headed for the VIP seats. Not long after he appeared in front of everyone, he suddenly felt a prickling sensation on his skin. Following the source of the prickling sensation, he saw a burly man with exaggerated muscles in the Japanese delegation. He was wearing a traditional samurai outfit and was looking at him with a deep gaze. Bam! Their gazes seemed to meet. Light gathered in Muko Yamashita's eyes, forming a white wave. It was so bright that Lu Cheng felt as though he was looking at a strong light. He narrowed his eyes slightly and his pupils suddenly darkened. It was as though there was a boundless starry sky in his eyes. The scarlet sun and sparkling stars swallowed all the external light as it rotated slowly. At the same time, Ren Li's heart skipped a beat. She followed Lu Cheng's gaze and happened to see a beautiful girl in an elegant kimono with exquisite makeup. Her round face was cute, her eyes were like mirrors, and her aura was quiet and gentle. It was as though she was just an illusion. The current successor of Shinjai sect, Kaori Karasawa. Whoosh! A strong wind suddenly blew in the arena, blowing chaotically. No one knew where it came from and where it went. And Chaoyang also found inspiration and reacted as though he was reminded of the scenery. Instinctively, he turned his head and made eye contact with a skinny yellow-robed monk in red robes. He felt his disgust and abandonment towards everything in the world. All illusions should be broken free from them. Water gushed out from his mind, containing a sense of vitality. It washed away Chaoyang's melancholy and despair. What a powerful mental infection. And Chaoyang took a deep breath, retracted his gaze and looked at the other mighty ones. Beside him, Peng Liyun saw Vagar at first glance. He saw his cold face, his well-ironed blue general uniform and the dancing electric snakes in his eyes. Crackle! A strange sound was heard in mid-air. The lights in the Shengxiang Stadium dimmed for a moment before returning to their former glory. Lu Cheng shifted his gaze away from Muko Yamashita. His footsteps swept past Kaori Kurosawa, Waku, and Vagar without the slightest hesitation. Feeling their unique aura, he relied on the secret assistance of the army formula and fighting formula to not be at a disadvantage. Finally, his gaze landed on the Nanjing delegation. He saw the tanned Banam sitting with his arms crossed. He was looking at the four of them coldly, like a wild beast staring at its prey. The national anthem stopped. Lu Cheng and the rest returned to their seats and sat down, no longer looking around. Vagar, Muko Yamashita and the rest also retracted their gazes. I really don't know what the Japanese Shengxiang are thinking, giving us 4 wild cards, said Chaoyang softly as he ran his fingers through his half-length hair. Even with 4 countries combined, there would only be 5 Inhumans below the age of 24. Hearing this, Zhong Ningtao made a self-deprecating joke. Maybe they didn't expect us to be so rude. Yeah. Ranli nodded slowly, as though she had taken his joke for the truth. She turned to Peng Liyun and the rest and asked curiously, "Why are you guys here?" "I've been at the Inhuman stage for a while now, and haven't had any actual combat experience. My hands are itching. Since there's such a good opportunity, I decided to come," replied Peng Liyun with a smile. "Aren't there so many Inhuman seniors in the Shangqing sect?" asked Lu Cheng in surprise. "Why wouldn't there be any actual combat experience?" The corners of Peng Liyun's mouth curled up as he laughed. "You also said that I'm a senior. Challenging a senior for no reason will lead to a scolding. My senior brothers and sisters of the same generation as me rarely return to the sect after I advanced. Seems like you're a demon in the Shangqing sect too." Lu Cheng was enlightened and mocked him in his mind. After their exchange, Renli took the initiative to speak. She smiled elegantly and said, "I've just completed my metamorphosis and want to use actual combat to get used to the Inhuman stage. That's why I signed up. I was sent here by my master to gain more experience so as to strengthen my foundation for the Inhuman stage in a year's time," replied Chaoyang. What about you?" Renli looked at Lu Cheng. Peng Liyun and Chaoyang were also waiting for his answer with interest. Now that everyone was more familiar with each other, Lu Cheng didn't go through the motions like he did at the airport. After thinking for a while, he nodded sincerely and said, "Need money." The surroundings suddenly became quiet. Lu Cheng felt that Peng Liyun and the rest were looking at him strangely, as though they were looking at something unbelievable. Just as he was about to speak, the lot drawing ceremony started and a bunch of formalities went through. Taking out his phone secretly, Lu Cheng secretly took a photo and sent it to Yen Zhaka. He also described to her how he felt when he made eye contact with Muko Yamashita and the rest. "You guys look pretty impressive," replied Yen Zhaka with a smile. Yen Zhaka sent an emoji with its hand covering its mouth and said, "I thought it was a bit strange when I saw that the organizing committee called you guys Team Stuck Abroad. Today, I browsed the forum and saw Unparalleled Dragon King's explanation. Then I figured it out. You guys are not Team Stuck Abroad, but Team Stuck Abroad. Especially you, the big pervert." Towards the end of her sentence, she seemed to have thought of something. Her pretty face turned red and her eyes seemed to be both angry and happy. Lu Cheng felt something and calmed down. "Snickering expression," he replied. "I don't agree with what others say. Except for Little Fairy." While chatting, Unparalleled Dragon King came to him and said with anticipation, "Little Tiger, I found a few resources but they only have a fixed broadcast of one arena. We'll be depending on you later. Remember to take a photo for the live broadcast. He implored with an expression of prostration. Sure, but I have other things to do. If it doesn't clash, it's fine. Lu Cheng was grateful to Unparalleled Dragon King for providing the video of the competition. He didn't reject him but gave him a heads up. If it really didn't work out, he could ask Peng Leyun or An Chaoyang for help. Not long after, the lot drawing ceremony officially started. There was only one way to avoid this double elimination round, and that was to not meet each other from the same country. First, Peng Leyun was picked and would face a boxer from Shengxiang. Then, An Chaoyang would face off against a mighty one from Miluo. After another minute, Ren Li's name was called. Her opponent was a monk from Shengxiang, Fuaku. Lu Cheng waited patiently. When it was nearing the end, he finally heard his name. China, Lu Cheng. He adjusted his sitting position and saw that the guest had drawn his opponent. Japan, Ichii Sakata. Ichii Sakata? Lu Cheng nodded thoughtfully. He recalled the information about this samurai in his mind. This was one of the 5 Inhumans that Zhong Ningtao had specially reminded of. He was also a disciple of the extreme Hadu sect and a fellow disciple of Muko Yamashita. He used to be on par with Muko Yamashita and had supernatural abilities. He was gradually surpassed by Muko Yamashita and was about to turn 24. He was still stuck at a bottleneck and had no hope of advancing. I've been imitating Muko Yamashita for the past few days and ended up against someone from the extreme Hadu sect. What a coincidence. Over at the Japanese representative team, Ichii Sakata, whose hair was dyed blonde, looked at the matchup with a solemn expression. He could almost imagine the headlines about him that would appear soon. Can the genius of the past return to glory? Chapter 453. After the drawing of lots, the 5 representatives returned to their respective changing rooms to prepare for the first round of double elimination. I'm so angry. Cheng, your match will be broadcasted, but I have to go to class at that time. Yen Zhaka sent a message with a, woof, I'm going to cry, emoji. Lu Cheng sat on the bench in the changing room with his head down. He typed on his phone and comforted his wife with a, patting head emoji. It's nothing. Just replay it later. I'll definitely win anyway. Yo Cheng, you're getting better at bragging. Yen Zhaka said, Ichii Sakata has supernatural powers and can release waves. He's like a mini Muko Yamashita. He's definitely in the top 10 below the Inhuman stage. Then no one would dare to say they're the best below the Inhuman stage. Ku, do you have so little confidence in me? Lu Cheng replied with a hands-on-hips expression. Yen Zhaka replied with a blank expression. I know my brother Cheng can transform at any time if he wants to. But, isn't this accumulating good karma for you? Quick, apologize for not understanding your sister's good intentions. I'm sorry. Lu Cheng couldn't hide his smile. Actually, I was just bragging just now. He said with a sigh while covering his face. Yen Zhaka almost spat out the milk in her mouth. She calmed down and replied with an emoji. Are you trying to make me laugh to death so you can inherit my Aunt Flower? Ji Mingyu looked at her daughter helplessly. Ku, I've taught you not to play with your phone when you're eating. You're getting out of hand. You're drinking milk and typing at the same time. Mom, I didn't have a phone to play with when I was young. Yen Zhaka quickly sat up and pointed out the problem. Ji Mingyu was momentarily speechless. After a few seconds of silence she said, Get the point. Yes. Yen Zhaka ate quickly and gracefully, finishing her breakfast in a few bites. She wiped her mouth with a napkin, picked up her phone and unlocked it. Lu Cheng replied with a silly smile. I admit that I'm stronger than Ichii Sakata, and I have that much confidence in myself. But since I haven't completed my transformation, the gap can't be too big. He still has a chance of winning, so I have to be cautious and give it my all. This concerns the cost of the plane ticket to see my fairy. It's good that you know. Yen Zhaka's mood was lifted, and the dimples on her cheeks were sweet and soft. How should I cheer you on later? I won't say anything that's too mushy. Kiss me. Ku, I feel like I'm back in the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. Lu Cheng replied with a snickering emoji. Suddenly, he felt a little sentimental and sighed. It was impossible for Ku to rush to the scene to cheer for him, chat with him on QQ, and cheer for him from afar. The only difference was that they were just friends at that time. Their feelings grew bit by bit as they progressed. But now, they had made a lifelong commitment to each other, and they didn't want their feelings to fade. Yeah. Yen Zhaka pursed her lips and suddenly became quiet. She paused for a moment and gently typed a few words. Chang, I miss you. Looking at her own missed message, she paused for a few seconds before deleting it word by word. She was afraid that it would affect her husband's mood during the competition. Taking a deep breath, she replied with a blushing face. That's different. You earned money for yourself, but now you're here to see me. That's true. Lu Cheng suddenly felt a little more motivated. After chatting for a while, Yen Zhaka began to tie up her hair, put on her glasses, packed her bag and prepared to leave the house. Lu Cheng lifted his head and saw Peng Liyun leaning against the wall opposite him. His eyes were unfocused, and no one knew what he was thinking about. And Chaoyang's body moved slightly, and his head nodded slightly. He was quietly intoxicated by the melody in his headphones. Ranli was holding her phone in her hand, playing a video of her opponent that she had found. Her eyes, however, were looking at the floor, admiring the floor tiles with unique and exotic patterns. A bunch of salted fish. Lu Qing thought of this inexplicable phrase. He shook his head helplessly and flipped through the information on Ichii Sakata stored in his phone. At this moment, he heard 2 crisp claps. Zhong Ningtao clapped his hands, waking up the salted fish in front of him and attracting their attention. He cleared his throat and said, "This is the semi-finals of the national team. We've prepared uniform martial arts suits for all of you. Hurry up and change. There are only 15 minutes before the official start. You can stay in the locker room or go to the stands. Pay attention to the broadcast announcement and wait around the corresponding arena 1 round before the start. Renli, don't nod blindly. You have to follow me." Ah. Renli looked innocent. It's just a martial arts stadium. How can I not find an arena? Lu Cheng held back his laughter and took the martial arts suit from the leader. There were 2 sets in total. They were the same design but different colors. They were to distinguish between the matches of the same country after the start of the top 16. One of them was plain white with a vertical red stripe from the shoulder to the waist. It looked like a ribbon. It was very cool. The other was red with golden stars. It was flamboyant. Lu Cheng chose the first set. He changed in the bathroom and put on the training shoes that Wu Qinggui's company had made for him. They were white and eye-catching, with a unique design. Walking out of the bathroom, he saw Peng Liyun and An Chaoyang had made the same choice as him. Ranli preferred the red one. As for the martial arts shoes on her feet, they were all different. Shall we go to the stands? Asked Lu Cheng, who was going to do a live broadcast with words and pictures. Sure. Ranli rushed to answer, and then looked at the leader weakly. Let's all go. It's better to watch from the outside. Peng Liyun looked at Zhong Ningtao with a smile. And Chaoyang nodded in agreement. Okay. Zhong Ningtao turned around and pushed open the door of the locker room. He then returned to Ranli's side, not daring to be careless. The organizing committee had set aside several times the number of seats for the contestants to isolate them from the audience. This was to prevent any violent conflicts. Lu Cheng and the others chose a place far away from the other representatives. Some were watching the opponents' videos, while others were contemplating their fighting strategies. Those who were prepared began to take pictures and send them to Yen Zhaka and Unparalleled Dragon King. At this time, a live broadcast post had appeared in the Longhu Club forum. Unparalleled Dragon King posted Lu Cheng's picture and the accompanying commentary. Thank you to the reporter Little Tiger for his report. If there are any more important matches that are not to be broadcast, he will give us a text broadcast. Applause required. Clap clap clap. Eternal Nightfall Yen Shaoling, who rarely came here, clapped first and sent a secretly observing emoji. Brahman said enthusiastically, Little Tiger, have you seen my idol? Yes. Lu Cheng glanced sideways at Peng Liyun and caught a glimpse of himself in his unfocused eyes. Really? Quick, take a picture, and I won't make fun of you anymore. Brahman said excitedly. I want to see Ranli. Okamoto's fan said with a drooling emoji. Yes, take a picture of Peng Liyun and in Chaoyang too. Unparalleled Dragon King added with great interest. This is a bit difficult. Lu Cheng's mouth twitched. Looking around, he came up with a plan and said to Peng Liyun and the others, "Let's take a picture together." Okay. And Chaoyang and the others agreed without hesitation. Lu Cheng smiled and handed the phone to Zhong Ningtao. "Leader, help us take a picture." "Haha, a souvenir? Don't worry, with your qualifications and progress, there will be plenty of opportunities to fight side by side in the future," Zhong Ningtao said with a smile. He took a few steps back and adjusted his pose like a professional. Click, click, click. After a few flashes, he returned the phone to Lu Cheng. "Take a look and see what you think. We'll do it again if it doesn't work out." "Not bad. Much better than me taking it myself." Lu Cheng chuckled and glanced at the photo effect. He realized that he, Peng Liyun, and in Chaoyang were all aliens who stiffened when they were photographed. Ran Li, on the other hand, had a gentle smile that hinted at heroism and was extremely photogenic. He first sent the picture to Ku, and when she laughed at him, he shared it with the other protagonists. Finally, he put it in the live post. "Hey, did you rush in front of them to take the picture?" Unparalleled Dragon King and the other onlookers realized something was wrong. "Careless." Lu Cheng covered his face and said with a funny face, "Yeah, that's how professional I am." "I admire you, little tiger," patting shoulder. Wonton Seller praised. Yen Shaoling said with a starry-eyed expression, "Go on, little tiger. I can call you brother, father and grandpa. As your relative, my seniority will be lowered sooner or later." Lu Cheng said with disdain. Brahman said with a rolling on the ground expression, "I envy you. I envy you so much." Lu Cheng didn't say anything else. He spent most of his energy watching the competition and sharing it with Yen Zhaka. He only took pictures and commentated when there was a lack of live broadcasts. Occasionally, he would exchange views with Peng Liyun, Ran Li, and in Chaoyang to summarize their judgments. This made Unparalleled Dragon King exclaim that Little Tiger looked so professional that he could be a commentator. Sometimes, his judgment was even better. "I'm not fighting alone," Lu Cheng replied. During this process, Peng Liyun and Ran Li fought one after another. Under the circumstances where their opponents weren't at the peak of sixth pin, they won without shedding a drop of blood. However, the fierceness of Shengxiang's boxing left a deep impression on Lu Cheng and the others. Miluo and Southern Zheng's boxing were similar, but the former was more aggressive and better at using their legs. The latter was more like an assassin style, vicious and vicious. Not long after, and Chaoyang took the stage. Under the circumstances where he didn't have much of an advantage, he fought for more than 10 minutes and finally defeated his strong opponent from Southern Zheng. He fully experienced the cruelty of Zahi boxing. The first round of double elimination matches was coming to an end. Lu Cheng said he had something to attend to in the forum, stood up, and walked to the central arena. His match was about to begin, and there was a live broadcast. In the Japanese representatives area, Ichii Sakata took a deep breath and stood up slowly with a solemn expression. Kaori Karasawa and Muko Yamashita, who had finished their matches, also looked over. "Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid," the Japanese team leader solemnly said to Ichii Sakata. "Yes." Ichii Sakata bowed deeply and turned to walk to the arena. "P.S. My trip is over and I'm returning today. The second update is at midnight. If I don't update on time, it means my flight was delayed and I have to take a break. I'll start updating tomorrow. PS2. I've been updating on time for the past few days. Even I'm scared of it." Chapter 454. How infuriating. Little Tiger actually dropped the ball at such a crucial moment. Banging the table expression, commented Brahman in the Longhu Club forum. Unparalleled Dragon King replied with a smiley face expression, "Luckily we have resources for this match. Why do you guys think Little Tiger has something to do in today's most important match?" Rubbing his chin expression, said, "Invincible punch." Who knows? Maybe he made an appointment? The match arrangement is only released after the lots are drawn. Laughing evilly expression, said Okamoto's fan. Shengxiang's red light district is very famous. Nonsense. Little Tiger went with his girlfriend. Can't he have something to do at the last minute? Wonton Seller stood up to uphold justice. Just as everyone was discussing and speculating, Unparalleled Dragon King reminded them, it's almost time. Ichii Sakata has both supernatural abilities and realms. For Lu Cheng, he's a rare opponent below the inhuman stage. Everyone quickly shifted their attention back to the match. When Lu Cheng was about to reach the arena, he suddenly heard a special notification from his phone. Picking it up, it was a 2-second voice message from Yen Zheka. He clicked on the play button and put it next to his ear. He heard a soft pop sound. It's really a kiss. Lu Cheng was stunned at first, but soon burst into laughter. He replied with a kissing emoji, handed his phone and wallet to the competition supervisor, and walked up the stairs. Step by step, he settled down his joy, stirred up his blood, and trembled slightly. It was just right. Standing in the middle of the arena, he stood with his feet slightly apart. Gazing into the distance, he watched as his opponent approached quickly. Ichii Sakata, with his blonde hair, seemed to have sensed something. His footsteps slowed down, and in the end, it was as if he was facing a gale or breaking through the waves. It was heavy and difficult. His back was straight, without the slightest bend. His face was brimming with fanaticism, like a soldier about to launch a pig strike or kamikaze attack. 1 step, 2 steps. Ichii Sakata stepped into the arena and stood at the predetermined position, facing Lu Cheng from a dozen meters away. As expected of a Japanese samurai who emphasizes willpower and spirit. Lu Cheng dispersed the army formula in his mind and retracted his released aura, turning it into a towering, sacred mountain in the blizzard. He had just tested his opponent a little, using the terrifying aura of the army formula that he had mastered over the past 2 months to suppress Ichii Sakata from afar. He wanted to disturb his mind and destroy his will to test his strength, but it was to no effect. Over the past 1 to 2,000 years, Japan had been deeply influenced by China. This could be seen from various aspects of society, including martial arts. However, under the influence of Japan's characteristics and ethnic habits, they developed different things. For a country that often suffered from earthquakes and typhoons and was short on resources, life was short and easy to lose. It was better to pursue the brilliant blooming of cherry blossoms. Therefore, they paid more attention to the spirit and will in martial arts. After the initial tempering of the physical body, they were not like the Hua nation, where the will controlled the spirit and the spirit controlled the body and gradually became one. Instead, they directly used strong and extreme will to create corresponding changes and produce unique waves. Then, they used this to stimulate the body and burst out with terrifying power and exaggerated speed. Among them, the Limit Hadu sect was a classic example. Lu Cheng controlled his body with willpower and spirit, and through the bridge of visualization, he wriggled his muscles, fascias, and organs to produce unique waves to complete the cultivation of force and create certain effects. The Limit Hadu sect used extreme willpower, such as anger or killing intent, to naturally change the body and produce corresponding waves. Then, the waves could be used to stimulate the body or attack the enemy. In other words, they hadn't reached the stage of force concentration. When the waves turned into the body's instincts and truly mastered the wave, they would be considered to be at the inhuman stage. Before reaching this stage, Japanese samurai tended to age prematurely due to their crazy training methods that didn't care about their bodies. Moreover, if their spirit broke down, their strength would plummet. As for the dance stage martial artists of China, even if their willpower was worn down and they were no longer their original selves, they wouldn't regress like a cliff. This was because at that stage, they were already balanced in all aspects. Their material foundation wouldn't suddenly collapse. At most, they would stagnate or experience a slight drop in strength. All sorts of thoughts flashed through Lu Cheng's mind. He saw Ichii Sakata bowing to him with a solemn expression. He returned the greeting with his hands cupped together. At this moment, the referee raised his right hand and announced in English, "Begin." In an international competition, the language barrier meant that conversation time lost its stage. If Lu Cheng hadn't been watching the competition for a long time and was mentally prepared, he might have been at a disadvantage. "Begin." Just as the referee finished speaking, A faint white glow appeared on Ichii Sakata's body. A deep tiger's roar reverberated in the air. With his palms facing each other, he placed them at his waist. As his body swayed, he pushed his shoulders forward and extended his arms, setting up the cannon barrel. His palms opened as though they were the maw of a real dragon. He spat out a ball of white light at Lu Cheng. Extreme Hadu Sect, Dragon Roar Hadu Punch. At the same time, Lu Cheng took a step forward, arched his body forward, and lowered his arms. With a hook and a shake, he sent out a cluster of drifting white cold flames and a brutal fireball at his opponent. Burning ice and fire. Boom. Red flames and white light shone at the same time, neutralizing each other and stirring up a gust of wind. Ichii Sakata seemed to have been prepared. The moment he unleashed the Dragon Roar Hadu Punch, a fanatical look appeared on his face. He stomped on the ground and leaped a dozen meters into the air, landing in front of Lu Cheng in an instant. Extending his right hand, he turned it into a palm knife. Using the momentum of his fall, he viciously chopped at his opponent's neck, leaving behind a trail of faint white light. Extreme Hadu Sect, Tiger Electric Slash. Lu Cheng didn't panic. Placing his feet together, he swung his shoulders and raised his right fist to meet his opponent's chop. Bam! Striking the edge of the palm, Ichii Sakata's body trembled slightly. He swung his arm back slightly, then swiftly turned soft and coiled around Lu Cheng's wrist like a python. Flicking his waist and back, he whipped out his left leg in midair, leaving a trail of white light that went from bottom to top. It was an exceptionally ferocious attack. Extreme Hadu Sect, Razor paired with Soft Throw. One kick and one coil, leaving the opponent distracted. This martial art included not only striking techniques, but also throwing techniques. Ignoring Ichii Sakata's grab, Lu Cheng adjusted his muscles, fascia, and organs in a flash, visualizing streaks of cold, crystal clear, but lonely and dark. Ice Spirit Holy Light Portrait. After this period of hard training, he had already made some progress and could barely visualize the frost force to the ice spirit force. Bam! The cold wave condensed into a ray of light that shot out from Lu Cheng's waist along with his fist. Bam! A fist shrouded in cold mist blocked Ichii Sakata's razor, while Ichii Sakata's right hand had already wrapped around Lu Cheng's wrist. However, the spot he touched was slippery ice, and he couldn't exert force on it. Ice Sect, 15th move, Ice Arma. Just as Ichii Sakata quickly adjusted, stimulating his body with feverish Hadu in an attempt to break through the layer of ice, he suddenly felt an indescribable chill seeping into his left leg where Lu Cheng's fist collided. He lost all feeling in his leg, and some white frost formed on his trousers. His lips turned blue. Ignoring the danger, he used the stimulation to forcefully twist his waist and kick again, using offense as defense. Bam! Ichii Sakata's right leg swept horizontally, continuing the razor stance from before. Extreme Hadu Sect, Whirlwind Kick. Lu Cheng sensed it. As Ichii Sakata twisted his waist, he withdrew his chi and blood and squatted down, perfectly avoiding the attack. Bam! The Dan force in his body surged. Stretching his body, his arms expanded, and his right palm shot upwards like a cannon. Bam! White ripples flashed across Ichii Sakata's body, and his right leg strangely stopped moving. Straightening his leg, he chopped downwards like a battle axe. Bam! Fist and leg collided at high speed, momentarily freezing in mid-air. The exaggerated muscles and shocking lines were clearly visible. Thump! 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 Lu Cheng took 3 steps back, while Ichii Sakata flew backwards without any leverage. Kacha! Lu Cheng exerted force on his feet, shifting his center of gravity, and pounced forward swiftly, like a ferocious beast that had locked onto its prey. In his mind, he visualized Ice Spirit Holy Light, which was boundless darkness without a trace of heat, and instantly transformed it into dense thunderclouds. Ice Spirit Force's version of Severe Warning. Ichii Sakata had just landed when he saw his opponent pouncing at him. Not daring to be careless, he let out a low growl and swung his right fist. As his fist moved forward, his body rapidly emitted a thick white light. The light rose into the shape of a dragon and a tiger. Like a flame, it instantly ignited Ichii Sakata, turning him into a huge Hadu, which struck towards Lu Cheng amidst the roars of dragons and tigers. Ultimate Hadu Sex Killer Move, Roaring Dragon and Tiger Mighty Punch. This was originally the ultimate move of a samurai who had truly mastered Hadu. But Ichii Sakata was able to use it at his current level by relying on his supernatural ability. Bam! Lu Cheng's crystal-frosted fist struck the huge white light. His opponent's strength was terrifying and domineering, coupled with the burning flames and the violent explosion. He couldn't help but take a few steps back, leaving a footprint and a crack in his body. After a few steps, he finally calmed down, but his right arm was still trembling uncontrollably. Ichii Sakata didn't pursue. He stood rooted to the ground, allowing the white light to dissipate bit by bit, revealing his body. Shivering, his eyes lost focus and his consciousness blurred. His dyed yellow hair was covered in ice shards. At this moment, Lu Cheng raised his hand and formed a seal, outlining an ancient character in his mind. "All right," he said in a low voice, his body leaving afterimages as he sprinted towards his opponent. In the Japanese delegation, Muko Yamashita's pupils shrank. P.S. Damn it, I'm stuck. I was supposed to write 6,000 in 4 hours this afternoon, but I only managed to write 3,000. There will be a second update at 12. I'll start making up for it tomorrow. Chapter 455. He was surrounded by darkness. There was no light, no warmth, and even the concept of cold was lacking, let alone sound and color. This was where Ichii Sakata wandered aimlessly. It was only when he began to struggle in his heart and was alerted by his own will and spirit that he was jolted awake. He felt the bone-chilling cold, a cold that dulled his thoughts and made him numb. Not good. Ichii Sakata's heart suddenly felt a sense of danger. He finally saw the light in front of him, and saw an opponent that appeared in a flash. Am I going to lose the match and lose all my honor and expectations? No. Struggling, Ichii Sakata tightened his thighs and pulled out his right leg, whipping up a trail of white light that resembled a meteor from the bottom to the top. His kicks stimulated the corresponding parts of his body with undulation. The ferocious force caused his body to be deflected. He took advantage of the momentum and sent his left leg flying. Alternating between his legs, he created a bright white whirlwind. Bam bam bam. Crisp sounds rang out continuously, almost converging into a single sound. The white undulation dispersed, opening a path for the whirlwind kick. At the critical moment, Ichii Sakata unleashed an astounding force. Lu Cheng had just closed in when he was met with this ferocious counterattack. He lowered his center of gravity and stopped abruptly. In his mind, he visualized a heavy scorching sun and the god of fire riding a red dragon. His waist and abdominal muscles bulged and his fascias on both sides pulled together. With a burst of his shoulders, he punched forward with his right fist. Bam! In the process of passing through the airflow, his fist seemed to be ignited by a layer of invisible flames that flickered unsteadily. Boom! His fist hit the air and the scarlet flames exploded, spreading forward and setting off a terrifying wave of fire. Amidst the loud boom, the layers of white light were swallowed up by the crimson sea of fire, while Ichii Sakata's feet kicked the sea of fire away, clearing the area around him. Bam! Lu Cheng's arm joints flexed and his fascia stretched. He punched his opponent's foot for the second time, stopping his chain of kicks. The force rebounded and his right arm swung. Lu Cheng's chi and blood retracted and fluctuated. His left arm swelled and flung out, transforming into a large spear that pointed at Ichii Sakata's body. Bam! Ichii Sakata's right arm glowed and swelled to twice its original size. He slashed down vertically, hitting his opponent's fist in time. Then, as his body swayed backwards, his hand blade lowered and dragged, cutting into his opponent's fascias. However, Lu Cheng withdrew his fist as soon as it made contact. Borrowing strength, he returned it to his lower abdomen and kicked out with his right foot. Bam! Bam bam bam! After gaining the upper hand in one move, he immediately suppressed his opponent. The old-fashioned and serious team leader looked at him and asked in a deep voice, "Muko-kun, can you beat this contestant Lu Cheng?" The void behind Muko Yamashita seemed to be shaking. A milky white light flashed and disappeared, rising into the vague shape of a dragon and tiger. "Yes," he answered succinctly. Even if Lu Chang made a breakthrough and completed his transformation according to the Chinese, I'm still confident in my current state. In the Longhu Club Forum, unparalleled Dragon King, who couldn't feel the cold wind and see the falling snow, sighed. Lu Cheng is improving so fast. Now even his physical fitness is at the top of the 6th pin. It's not impossible for him to break through to the inhuman stage before the end of the year. Yeah. I thought Ichii Sakata, an outstanding 6th pin fighter, would be able to create some trouble for him. Who knew, from the beginning until now, Ichii Sakata didn't even have a chance. Road to the arena side. Let's watch. Every fighter who can reach this level is not easy to deal with. The more advantageous the situation is, the more Lu Cheng can't be careless. Pig Riding Knight expressed his opinion. Brahman and Eternal Nightfall didn't have time to discuss or praise. They silently saved up their luck and watched the competition. Bam bam bam. Bam bam bam. Ichii Sakata felt the cold wind getting stronger and his body stiffening. He knew that if this continued, he would be crushed sooner or later by Lu Cheng, who kept borrowing strength and getting stronger. This can't go on. I have to break out. Ichii Sakata screamed in his heart. He tried desperately, but he was too slow to make a decision. Lu Cheng's mega avalanche had already taken shape. It was powerful and almost impossible to interrupt. The more he fought, the more hopeless he felt. Ichii Sakata could see the referee raising his right hand and announcing his defeat. He could also see the criticism and ridicule on the internet and newspapers. No. I can't lose. I can't lose to an opponent of the same level. He thought of his father, who was also from the extreme Hadu sect. He thought of his father's fervent hope. He thought of his friends fawning over him. He thought of the admiration in the eyes of the girls. He thought of the various privileges he received in his daily life. He thought of the moment his halo disappeared and he became an ordinary samurai. He would lose everything and never be able to raise his head again. Even if he was still strong, he would no longer be the center of attention. No. I don't want this to happen. Ichii Sakata's mind buzzed. His vision seemed to be filled with a glaring blood red. The long-suppressed feelings of fear, hatred, and murderous intent in his heart suddenly erupted. At this moment, the pale white glow radiating from his body was gradually dyed a faint crimson. The hustle and bustle returned to silence and restraint. Come on! Ichii Sakata roared. He took a step forward with his left foot and punched with his right fist. With a bang, a crimson glow enveloped his body, exuding a thick murderous intent. It intimidated his opponent's heart and mind, making it difficult for Lu Cheng to focus for a short while. Extreme Hadu Sect, Sure Kill Move, 7 Sins Hadu Punch. This move used negative thoughts as fuel. It was equivalent to a combination of Dragon Roar Hadu Punch and the Army formula, bringing with it the effect of fear. Memories brought explosive power. Ichii Sakata broke through his past and delivered the strongest punch of his life. Amidst the deep roars of dragons and tigers, the pale red Hadu transformed into a sharp scythe of death. With Ichii Sakata's fist as the blade, it cleaved at his enemy. Lu Cheng had a premonition of danger when Ichii Sakata's white Hadu changed. Flipping his hands, he formed a seal and outlined the fearless forwarding formula in his mind. As the voice echoed, he managed to intimidate his heart and mind in time. He bounced back and retreated quickly. He wasn't retreating to avoid Ichii Sakata's 7 Sins Hadu Punch. It was too fast for him to dodge. He was retreating to buy himself some time to prepare. In Lu Cheng's mind, the great river Freezes appeared. In a vast expanse of whiteness, a huge crimson sun fell from the sky and smashed into this cold world. Boom! Ice and fire collided violently with his right fist, collapsing and condensing into a dark dot or vortex. Bam! Lu Cheng lowered his feet, bounced his back, and pulled back his right arm before shooting it out like lightning. Mutated version of Severe Warning. Poof! As the fist and the faint red Hadu punch collided, the glow disappeared. All the murderous intent, fear, and power seemed to have been absorbed by Lu Cheng and hidden in the vortex that had collapsed. Boom! The vortex disintegrated, and the violent recoil of energy slammed into Ichii Sakata's fist like a tidal wave, sending him flying. Lu Cheng's right arm was sore and swollen. For a moment, he lost his strength. Without waiting for it to recover, He stomped on the ground and pounced forward with a loud crack, closing in on his opponent who had yet to land. At this moment, Ichii Sakata struck the ground with a milky white Hadu punch, stirring up a cloud of dust and scattering shockwaves. Lu Cheng was about to throw another punch when his heart skipped a beat. He realized that his ability to lock onto his opponent had mysteriously lost its effect. In that instant, Ichii Sakata seemed to have disappeared from the arena. He couldn't sense him at all. An ice mirror formed in his mind as he sensed danger coming at him from behind. Lu Cheng turned his back, leaned to the side, and lightly kicked out with his left leg. Bam! The back of his foot struck Ichii Sakata, who had appeared out of nowhere. The impact made his body wobble, and the killing move he was about to unleash came to an abrupt halt. What Ichii Sakata had just used was the ninjutsu, back attack that he had been secretly practicing for the past 2 years. However, it felt like he had fallen into a trap. Once the move was successful, Lu Cheng immediately followed up with a right kick, from the bottom up. Bam bam bam. 1 kick, 2 kicks, 3 kicks. He kicked Ichii Sakata until he was floating. Lu Cheng retracted his aura and immediately unleashed it. His body spun rapidly, and with a snap, his left leg kicked Ichii Sakata, sending him flying like a soccer ball. Thump! Ichii Sakata lost his balance and fell heavily. Then, he heard the ancient sound of the word attainment, and saw Lu Cheng's white martial arts shoes stop beside his ear. The referee raised his right hand and announced in English, "Lu Cheng wins." Chapter 456. Lu Cheng wins. The unfamiliar voice echoed in his ears. Lying on the ground, Ichii Sakata's mind went blank, forgetting to stand up. It was as though he had returned to his home, to the days he felt when he woke up every afternoon. I did my best and broke through the past, but I still lost the match. Lu Cheng's shoes were undamaged. He didn't seem to have used his full strength at all. He was still at ease. When I was overtaken by Mukokuen, I comforted myself that running fast might not necessarily be a good one. The second half of the race was more important. When he had mastered the real wave, I was stuck at the same spot. I comforted myself that I was invincible below this level, I was the strongest, and I would definitely be able to advance in the future. But now, facing a 20-year-old opponent of the same level, I lost so pathetically and powerlessly. What else could I use to comfort myself? Lu Cheng withdrew his hand and coughed, waking Ichii Sakata up. Ichii Sakata stood up, his eyes full of confusion and frustration. With only a few Japanese words, Ichii Sakata couldn't communicate, so he didn't bother to say more. He cupped his hands and whispered in his mother tongue, "Thank you." Japanese samurai valued etiquette above all else. He couldn't embarrass his country in this aspect. Ichii Sakata returned the salute with a bow out of habit. He turned around and walked down the ring with hazy footsteps, completely ignoring the pain in his arms. He had used ninjutsu, back attack in a desperate situation, and his lower body was unsteady. Coupled with the recoil damage from the mutated version of Severe Warning, even though he had been able to block Lu Cheng's consecutive kicks, he was still floating in the air. His arms were almost broken or cracked. Lu Cheng wasn't interested in Ichii Sakata's journey or behind-the-scenes story. He even forgot to greet the audience and rushed down the stone steps to find the competition supervisor. After retrieving his wallet and phone, he unlocked the screen and sent a message to Yen Zhaka. "I won." At this moment, Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and An Chaoyang, who had raised their right hands to congratulate Lu Cheng, withdrew them awkwardly. They pretended to look around and commented on the matches in the other arenas. Yen Zhaka seemed to have been waiting. Soon, she sent a surprised emoji. 3.5 minutes. Ichii Sakata lives up to his name. Pfft, I'll be proud if you flatter me like this. Lu Cheng smirked and sent a picture with an expression similar to his own. What Ku was implying was that those who could last more than 1 or 2 minutes against her were the best of the best among the 6th pin. Yen Zhaka sent an emoji of covering her mouth and laughing. Hee hee. Please call me Professional Orange Bragger. Alright, now we can focus on class. Lu Cheng put away his phone and returned to the stands. He was in a good mood and gave Peng Liyun, and Chaoyang, Ren Li, and Zhong Ningtao a high five. The expressions of my teammates are a bit strange. What's wrong? Lu Chang asked in confusion. Nothing. Pang Layun's gaze continued to wander. And Chao Yang did not look sideways and focused on the song. Ranli lowered her head and seriously studied the problem of how to bet. In the Longhu Club forum, Unparalleled Dragon King commented with a comical expression. Haha, I'm browsing the Japanese forums. It's so fun to read their comments. You know Japanese? Hurry up and translate it. Let me see how they flatter you. Eternal Nightfall, Yen Xiaoling deliberately sent an emoji. Let's wait. Brahmin quickly replied. After a while, Unparalleled Dragon King began to translate the comments one by one. Ichii Sakata has really become an ordinary person. Ichii Kuan actually performed above his usual standards but still failed. He didn't stand a chance from the beginning to the end. Only when he unleashed the 7 Sins kill was a surprise and hope, but it didn't have any effect. Idiot! Why would idiots like Ishihara from the Martial Arts Association give 4 wild cards to China? That Lu Chang was already very famous last year. I've even seen his name here. I feel like he's a genius, even better than Mokokuin. I heard that China has many geniuses on the same level as him. All the contestants this time are of the same level. After all, it's an ancient country full of history. We can only look forward to Kaori-chan and Mokokuin. Kaori-chan is the best. Haha, the Japanese are quite cultured. They didn't show any sour expressions. Wonton Seller said, laughing with arms akimbo expression. Eternal Nightfall, Yen Xiaoling played dumb and said, although I don't understand what they're saying, it still feels good. There's nothing happier than the defeat, praise, and envy of the enemy. Little dragon, I'll leave the important task of translating such comments to you. Patting shoulder emoji, said Brahmin excitedly. After browsing through the content of the livestream post, Lu Cheng felt even better. He didn't appear again. After the first round of the double elimination competition ended, he and his teammates went straight back to the hotel. Standing in front of the window of the room on the top floor, he looked at the bright lights that symbolized human civilization and waited for the next round, full of ambition. Picking up his phone, Lu Cheng shared his feelings with his wife. At the end of it he replied, there's a prize for entering the top 16. Yen Zhaka was in class and couldn't reply in time. Lu Cheng waited for a while but didn't hear the special reminder. He unlocked the screen subconsciously and wanted to send another message. But after he finished typing, he thought that sending too many messages would affect the girl's study. So he restrained himself and deleted the content he had written word by word. After washing up, Lu Cheng turned off all the lights and lay on the bed in the quiet darkness, looking for something to do to pass the time. After seeing Fatty Jiang crying about being hungry for supper, he kindly sent the Shengxiang food map that he had stolen in the past few days to his best friend. You're so mean. I've decided to go out and eat old Lu's barbecue. I'll take a picture for you later. You're welcome. Jiang Fei sent a come on, let's hurt each other emoji. Pinch the fat on your body and touch your bulging belly. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Lu Cheng scolded. Besides, I'm going to sleep. I can't see what you send. Manual smiley face emoji. While dealing a blow to Fatty Jiang, Yen Zhaka replied to Fatty Jiang's previous message. I'll wait for you to treat me to a big meal with the prize money. By the way, Empress Dowager will be back in China around the 14th of September. Okay. Lu Cheng quickly changed the app and booked a flight to America on the 14th of September. He sent a screenshot to Yen Zhaka. I really want to tear up a dozen pages of the calendar. Yen Zhaka said what was in her heart in a joking tone. After chatting for a while, it was time for class and Lu Cheng to go to bed. So they said good night to each other. The next morning, he woke up on time and did all kinds of things step by step. When he was done, he went to the training place and continued his hard training day after day. In his visualization, a cold light burst out. It was crystal clear and shone dreamily, but it set off the boundless darkness, endless loneliness and extreme coldness without any heat. As the picture took shape, Lu Cheng felt that the power of frost in his body was changing slightly. It was more illusory, more ethereal, more like a whirlpool that absorbed heat. This was the upgrade of the frost force to the ice spirit force. He had already found the way and was building a solid foundation. After practicing the ice spirit force for a while, Lu Cheng took out the Emperor Yen diagram that had lost a lot of its charm. He focused his mind and tried to understand it, trying to picture that kind of concentration, that kind of heaviness, that kind of explosion and that kind of eruption in his mind. However, he was still a little short and couldn't visualize it successfully. Looks like the Emperor Yen force is the highly condensed Zhu Rong force. Lu Cheng thought. When his mind reached its limit, he turned to training his fists and legs. It was another day without any surprises. They practiced in the morning and rested in the afternoon. At night, they came to the Shengxiang Stadium to watch the second round of double elimination draw. Because it was only the first round, no one had lost 2 rounds. So there were still 36 contestants and 18 matches. This time, Lu Cheng's name was drawn early. Who will it be? I hope it's not a Japanese samurai. I need to experience more different martial arts. He thought to himself. A few seconds later, the guest drew his opponent and shouted out the name, Miluo Vagar. Vagar? Lu Cheng turned his head in shock and looked at the cold-looking man in the blue general uniform. He was looking at him with an expressionless face. His silver eyes were dark and flickering. Damn, I'm going against the second seed in the second round of double elimination. It's really not a Japanese samurai. Chapter 457. Vagar. In the live broadcast post of Longhu Club Forum, Unparalleled Dragon King typed with a Nike mouth emoji. This is getting interesting. Road to the Arena replied with a smiley face emoji. It's indeed interesting. He's right in front of the Inhuman stage, and it's the second round of the double elimination round where he doesn't have a strong desire to win. It's definitely a good experience for Lu Cheng to have an intense clash with an expert of the Inhuman stage. That's enough. We don't need to worry about the outcome. Anyway, I don't think Lu Cheng will win. Not necessarily. Lu Cheng's physical fitness, mastery of moves, and battle rhythm are all at the level of a top 6th pin fighter. Coupled with his powerful supernatural ability, it's not impossible for him to beat the newly promoted Inhuman Mighty One. A plumber eating mushrooms joined the discussion. But the chances are slim. Pig Riding Knight chimed in. Vagar is very popular in the surrounding countries. If it weren't for his strong supernatural ability that interferes with the ability to sense the root pulp, he might have been able to step into the Inhuman stage 1 or 2 years earlier. I think that among the 4 contestants, only Peng Leyun has a higher chance of winning against him. Ran Li is still a bit off. Above the sky, the rock and roll girl said, I heard that Shengxiang, Miluo, and Nanjing haven't had professional competitions yet. Compared to our country, their martial artists should be lacking in battle experience, right? This is good for Lu Cheng. Haha, sister-in-law, don't think that Shengxiang and Miluo don't have mature professional matches. Their fighters have plenty of opportunities for actual combat. Unparalleled Dragon King explained, their domestic situation is often unstable, and they are affected by the nearby war-torn areas. Their economic environment isn't good either. There are many bloody underground arenas, street fights, and even occasional local wars. Their life and death experience is much better than Lu Cheng and the others. Although Vagar is the son of a warlord and a future general, he likes to practice his martial arts on the battlefield the most. He trains his spirit through killing. As long as he doesn't die, he will definitely be a figure who dominates a region in the future. Sob sob sob. I'm getting nervous from your words. Brahman sent 2 streams of tears gushing out like a fountain. Eternal Nightfall, Yen Xiaoling, who was secretly observing, chimed in. This is the first time I've felt nervous since the end of the Nationals. So you're usually in a dead state, stupid Nightfall. When facing Yen Xiaoling, Unparalleled Dragon King couldn't help but mock her. I'm angry. The baby was a little emotional. I'll forgive you if you go to the Lu Cheng forum and post a live broadcast. Yen Xiaoling wasn't stupid at all at this time. Sure, Schrodinger's tiger, little tiger. Let's continue the live broadcast today. Although the match between Lu Cheng and Vagar will definitely be broadcasted, you still have to take pictures for us on the spot. Unparalleled Dragon King gladly agreed and started looking for the little war reporter. My opponent is Vagar. Lu Cheng didn't have the time to browse the forums, so he sent the results of the draw to Yen Zheka immediately. In the second round of double elimination, he actually encountered a strong opponent who was definitely in the top 4 of this competition. Yen Zheka woke up early as promised. She was not only practicing martial arts, but also concerned about her husband's competition. Soon, she replied with a blank, looking at the sky and the wind. Vagar. Cheng, I've realized that when you participate in the individual challenge tournament, your luck isn't very good. Lu Cheng still had a way out, so he wasn't too nervous. Now that he had calmed down, he changed his mind and replied, maybe it's because I've spent my life's luck on certain things. Yen Zheka pursed her lips and smiled faintly. She turned her head to the side and paused for a few seconds before replying, you're getting better at talking. It's okay, you have your sister's good luck shining on you. At this point, she sent an emoji with her chin resting on her hands. Cheng, I think it's time for you to attack first. Vagar was a representative figure of a national sect. Yen Zheka and Lu Cheng had already discussed and analyzed him when they were chatting. Now, there was no need for more words or elaboration. They went straight to the point. Yeah, we have the same idea. Lu Cheng's body suddenly trembled. That was the eagerness to fight. The reason why Inhumans were called Inhumans was because they were close to monsters in all aspects. Lu Cheng's current insane physical strength could only be said to not be at a disadvantage in front of mighty ones of this level. If he were to engage in a protracted battle or a battle of attrition, he wouldn't stand a chance. On the contrary, it would be easier for his opponent to suppress him by relying on his realm and strength advantage. The best way to win against a strong opponent like Vagar was to use the 3 axes of Chang Yao Jin to gain the upper hand and put his opponent at a disadvantage for a short period of time. Then, he would seize the opportunity to find a way to win and end the battle quickly before his opponent could show his strength. Be it China, Japan, Milieu, Old Europe or New America, all the martial arts combat systems were essentially the same at the critical junctures. For example, the Inhuman's root pulp would mutate to a certain extent due to cultivation, and the body would undergo a metamorphosis. As for how to cultivate, that would be up to each individual. Milieu, for example, blended the 2 martial arts philosophies of China and Polo. Under the influence of years of war, they developed a unique cultivation system. Through perverse polishing and tempering of the body, they would stimulate their potential and awaken the natural treasures of the human body. They would slowly guide the root pulp and gradually mutate. Shengxiang and Nanjing were similar. Therefore, if the martial artists of these countries couldn't reach the inhuman level, they would be miserable in middle age. Due to overdraft and old injuries, they would be tormented by illness and pain. Most of them wouldn't live past 50. If the environment was stable and the economy was good, there would be fewer people practicing such martial arts. Unless they were desperate, they wouldn't choose it. However, in Shengxiang, Milieu, and Nanjing, the economy was poor, the situation was chaotic, and the unemployment rate was high. People who were so poor that they wouldn't live past 50 could be found everywhere. Given such an opportunity to change their fate, they would definitely grab it. Lu Cheng remembered a scholar who had studied such situations and published a book called The Influence of the Geographical Environment on the Martial Arts System. While he and Yen Zheka were discussing how to fight Vagar, Peng Liyun was drawn to face the 8th seed of the competition, a top-notch 6th pin with a strong psychic supernatural ability, Li Shaokong of Nanjing. Everyone's luck isn't so good today, Peng Liyun said with a smile as he played with his phone. While he was talking, Renli drew the Japanese fighters except for Kaori Karasawa, Muko Yamashita, and Ichii Sakata. A few seconds after he finished, and Chao Yang was also drawn. His opponent was a strong fighter from Milieu who had the strength of a top-notch 6th pin. Lu Cheng looked deeply at Peng Liyun and nodded solemnly. No, it's just the 2 of us. After that, they looked at each other and smiled. They weren't upset or angry. In fact, they couldn't wait to drag their opponent into the ring. Not long after, Lu Cheng's match against Vagar was about to begin as he had been drawn earlier. At this moment, he saw the request from Unparalleled Dragon King. After thinking for a while, he turned to Peng Liyun, Ren Li, and An Chaoyang. Can you help me take a picture later? Compared to Zhong Ningtao, he trusted Peng Liyun and the rest more. This was probably the appreciation of martial artists. Huh. Ran Li and the rest were at a loss at first. Then they gave him a strange look, as if to say, I didn't expect you to be like this. I've seen narcissistic people before, but not this narcissistic. Cuff. Lu Qing blushed and quickly explained. A friend of mine is doing a live stream post for the King of Youth Pro League. He asked me to take a few pictures for the occasion. He doesn't know I'm Lu Cheng. I can't tell him I'm going to the competition. Wait a moment. Got it. Peng Liyun smiled leisurely. I have an account in the forum too. I'm also lurking. F***K. Lu Qing immediately asked, What's your name? I mainly mingle in Shangqing sect and my own personal forum. You probably don't know me. I'm called Multi-String Trickster. Peng Liyun answered with interest. What about you guys? I only read and don't comment. I don't have an account. Renli was a little embarrassed. I'm afraid I can't help but quarrel with others. You know how to quarrel. Lu Cheng was shocked. Yeah, very good. Renli answered seriously. But the rest didn't quite believe her. And Chaoyang smiled. I don't pay much attention to the martial arts forum. Most of the time, I'm reading books, looking for music, reading comments, and writing. Writing. He's a literary hero of a generation. Don't offend him, or he'll write about me as a weirdo. Lu Cheng complained in his mind and told them his nickname on the forum. My name is Schrodinger's Tiger. You guys can help me post a picture in the live post later. Schrodinger's Tiger. Multi-String Trickster. We're a good match. Peng Liyun joked. Without waiting for Lu Cheng to reply, he seemed to have touched something. His eyes started to lose focus and his thoughts drifted. Turning his gaze back to the arena, he sent a message to Yan Zheka. Snickering emoji. It's time for me to go on stage. How are you going to cheer me on today? Cheer me on. Yan Zheka deliberately blinked blankly, and immediately sent him a picture. It was a marriage certificate with their names written on it and their photos pasted on it. How is it? Are you motivated to see this? Yan Zheka said. Yeah. Nodding heavily expression. Lu Cheng replied. Fighting for the sake of his family. Lu Cheng unlocked his phone, switched to the live stream interface and passed it to Peng Liyun. He took a deep breath, left his seat and walked towards the arena. Opposite him, the tall and muscular Vagar suddenly stood up. Cheers filled the arena. The sound waves of Vagar suppressed all the restlessness. As a genius martial artist with a strong personality, he was also very popular in Shengxiang. Thump, thump, thump. His footsteps were heavy as he walked towards the stone steps majestically. He had a terrifying domineering aura. Lu Cheng didn't back down. His aura gradually grew. He was like a majestic white snow mountain that hadn't moved for thousands of years. The biting cold wind that surrounded him contained an intimidating aura of blood. Bam! Both of them stepped into the arena at the same time. When their eyes met, it was as if lightning flashed. Standing in his position, Lu Cheng closed his eyes. Bits and pieces of information about Vagar flashed through his mind. The supernatural ability of thunder and lightning. His martial arts were born from fighting, concise and practical. Good at using elbows and knees. Great strength and speed. Similar to the inhuman stage. What a formidable opponent. Therefore, he had to start the fight first and gain the upper hand. Vagar was wearing a Miluo-style general hat. At this moment, he lowered the brim of the hat and used the shadow to cover half of his eyes, making the silver-white lightning in his pupils even more terrifying. Before long, the referee raised his right hand and swung it down. Begin! Just as he finished speaking, Lu Cheng raised his hands and formed a seal. He said in a low voice, All right. P.S. My previous updates were on time. Actually, I didn't save any chapters. Probably because I was in Japan, which was an hour faster than here. By the time I finished writing according to the usual procrastination pace, even though it was already 7 in the local area, it was only 6 in the country. Facepalm. For this trip, I've brought back a few cuttlefish toys as gifts for everyone. I've started the lucky draw on the official WeChat account. Everyone, leave a comment. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.